Hey guys, welcome in everyone. Thank you. 21 people are here for it being an hour early. I can't tell you how much I appreciate all of that. And I've already seen some birthday wishes. Thank you guys so much. This has kind of been a rough week, but all of your guys' love has really helped me through it. So welcome everyone. How is everyone tonight?
Fabulous.
Good.
Okay. You're asking that, right?
Then we're talking
doing well.
Wow.
All right. Well, I just want to say thank you again, everyone, for coming. I have been a little bit like on fire this week. Purple and Salty can attest to this. So thank you for putting up with me being on fire. Setting up the stream was like really stressful. I was like, I don't want to do this because I don't like being in the spotlight. So that's why I decided to make this an appreciation for all things Tolkien, because Lord knows I'd be a different person without him. So this amazing man Salty's going to help me with man chat tonight, everyone, so that I'm not frantically trying to keep up with everything. So thank you all for being here. Okay, Cappy, behave.
Cappy's calling out Johnny and Max's relationship troubles in the chat.
I said, like, what was it? I was streaming this morning, last night. I don't know. It's all a blur. I've slept like 3 hours in the past 48. Anyway, I was streaming and he was saying like, oh, like me and Max were buddies, all that sort of thing. And I was like, well, I haven't spoke to him in like a couple months. Like it's been a while. Yeah. And then, now he's in chat and be like, oh, I haven't spoken to him a couple months. I'm like, it was true. And now I've spoken with him because we're here in the same stream. But at the time that I said it, it was true. So,
Happy, actually, the joke's on you. They haven't talked to each other once since we've been backstage.
that is true, too.
By the way, hi Johnny. It's good.
What's up, bro? My bad. I feel bad that we didn't even greet each other. My bad.
There it is.
Well, that's the kind of friendship and relationship that we have. You don't even have to say hi. You're just like, dude, I already know what's up. Like, it's good to
exactly.
See.
It's like that.
The other thing too, Cappy, is we haven't been invited back on to that time of the month over at Poor Choices. So we haven't been able to talk to each other.
In the families between the two of us. Okay.
Yeah.
We're working on it. All right.
We had some puppers, so we had to say goodbye.
I'm going to use that as my guilt trip from now on.
F's in the chat for our lovely puppers.
Yes, both of them.
I know, we need to do a time of the month. Probably, maybe we'll do one. Have we done one for June? I don't think we have. Maybe we'll come back from Dallas. We'll have a...
That'd be fun. Yeah,
that's my people.
All right. Well, while Salty is saying hi to chat, I'm going to go ahead and kick us off. Purple Valkyrie can only be here for the first hour because it's an ungodly hour for her, and I want her to get some sleep. You stress me out so badly, and Johnny too. I'm like, people who don't sleep stress me out. So,
sweetheart.
I feel great. You're stressing, and I'm like, I love life. I don't really need that much sleep. I'm good.
I fall apart if I have less than 5.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm a wimp. I understand this. I'm a wimp about myself. So let's just kick off things. We are going to go around the horn, and I want us to just throw out, what is our first memory of Lord of the Rings, whether it be the books, whether it be the movies? What is your endearing memory? What was that moment in time you were like, oh my gosh, this is the coolest thing ever? I would love to go around and talk about that. I want to hear what you guys have to say. I'll go last, but we're going to start with Purple Valkyrie. My dear, what is your first endearing memory of Lord of the Rings?
Absolutely. First of all, let me say a very happy birthday, sweethearts. You deserve it.
Yeah, happy birthday. Also, can I get Purple to read me the Bible? That would be I forget how lovely your voice is. And then I hear you and I'm like, she should sell that voice doing something. I don't know what. Something.
Wait until you hear her get mad at you. Just I've made her mad at me. It's not quite as endearing.
That sounds about right. I hope I've never
just once.
What was my first memory of Lord of the Rings and Tolkien? It had to be The Hobbit, reading that as a child. So that was my first introduction, even before I ever read Lord of the Rings. And I was kind of on the C.S. Lewis kick, and I then found out that C.S. Lewis had this friendship with with some guy called Tolkien, and he'd written this shorter story, which was The Hobbit. I didn't quite feel up to, diving into Lord of the Rings just yet. I was a little bit intimidated by the size of the books, but I absolutely love the world that he created. I love the Hobbits. I wanted to be a Hobbit. I still do, not going to lie. And then obviously down the line, we found out that there were going to be films, and we were incredibly nervous. But Peter Jackson absolutely hit it out of the park. I couldn't be happier with the trilogy that we got.
That's awesome.
Jaden Hamilton says he read the book first, then watched the movies, then again and again the extended. Now he's planning on rereading all of the books after he rereads Wheel of Time. Good man,
awesome.
Jaden.
That's awesome.
Good strategy. Yeah.
Tugs, my dear, what is your first endearing memory of Lord of the Rings?
The movies.
Yeah.
I'm the normie on set. How are you all? Hello. Not alone. Hi there. I never even heard of it, to be honest with you. I'm not gonna lie. I've never even heard of Lord of the Rings. I think my English teacher at school at some point briefly mentioned it in a passing. But we never read them in school. I never read them, which is so weird to me because I was an avid reader as a kid. And my uncle loves them, absolutely loves them. And that's actually my first memory with him. And kind of how we bonded was he took me because no one else would go. And I'm like, well, I want to see it. That looks really good. I have no idea what's going on, but I want to see it. And he was like, we're going. And we went on opening night for every single one. And it just,
wow. Oh, I'm jelly.
Yet to read the books.
It's okay.
Everyone's favorite Canadian is in the house. Zax, he says, happy birthday all over again. And Zax is at 995 subscribers. He's already hit all of his hit all of his watch hours. So if you have not subscribed to Zax 7, let's put our man from Canada.
Yes, Zax is good people.
Please.
Not only has he reached all his watch hours, he's like far surpassed that of like regular channels that have already been monetized.
Oh, his channel's on its way then. That's awesome. It's on its way.
So he's doing great.
You just need that last bit of that last teeny tiny subscribers and you're good to go. That's awesome.
That is awesome. All right, Max, your turn. What's your first enduring memory of Lord of the Rings?
Mine was being in the theater and listening and watching and just experiencing, because that's like the best word that I can think of, was just experiencing the final speech by Aragorn at the Black Gates, who is, beautifully portrayed by Viggo Mortensen. And that is really where I found, because I went with my parents and I found myself just so enthralled with what he was calling these men to do, the sacrifice that they were about to make, and the level of nobility and honor that they held for each other and for their quest was far beyond anything that I had imagined could be possible in the real world. Because you're a kid, all you care about are, playing with your friends or sports or, like trying not to do homework for school and stuff. Like it's just so minimalistic. And then seeing such a grand sacrifice, I was like, you have purpose in life. And that's what I think Aragorn teaches us, is this grand purpose, this greater thing that you're called to do. And so from then on, I was just like, okay, I'm in. I'm going to read the books. I'm going to watch all the films. I'm going to watch all the appendices and everything like that. And just fell in love with it. So
Awesome.
That's cool. All right, Johnny, your turn.
It's funny. I vividly remember like the sequence of everything that happened. So it was the first time I saw anything Lord of the Rings related, or even heard of Lord of the Rings, was at Burger King on like a freaking Happy Meal bag like type thing.
Awesome.
And it was like, I don't know if they have Happy Meals there, but it was like some sort of just bag where we got our food and it had Frodo and Sam on it. And we started hearing about Lord of the Rings, its magic and all that. And at the time, I'm a big Harry Potter fan, and so I'm like, what is this? This wannabe Harry Potter? Like me and my brother were sticklers about like creativity and like, knockoffs and stuff. And it's like, oh, now that Harry Potter's popular, I just want to be Harry Potter. Okay, cool. This looks lame.
At the same time. That's right.
Yeah. Yep. And then like several nights later, after the movie's out, my sister comes home and she's like, I just saw it. the greatest movie ever. And she was just like, it is awesome. So me and my brother looking at each other like, okay, crap, like this might actually be good. A couple nights later, we watched it. I remember my dad was there, my uncle was there, and it just blew us away. And I specifically remember the just Legolas and the freaking arrows. We just like towards the end, and he just keeps going. And I remember just like that was like the first thing we talked about like after the movie was over is how many arrows does this guy have? So cool. And so I was hooked. I mean, I immediately repented. I was like, Lord of the Rings is better. Like, I'm never better again. Yeah, that was, I'll never forget those nights. Yeah.
That's awesome.
That's awesome.
That's really cool.
Ben Cordwell says he saw an ad for the Fellowship on TV when he was sick once, and it looked incredible. Then his dad came home with the VHS to surprise him, and he watched the movie 3 times.
I forget that we were still using VHSs in the early 2000s.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
Like, there's a Pirates of the, I think the first Pirates of the Caribbean, which I think came out in 2004, 2005, is on VHS.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
wow.
Revenge of the Sith is on VHS. Like that, we were using those for so long, and I always forget. When did that even? Was it what? The 2010s? I don't even know when we stopped.
I remember.
Which is crazy because it's like it's just a reminder, like how lucky we got with the timing of this trilogy, like the time because it was like we were just barely like far enough in with technology and CGI where they could really portray like a lot of these worlds and a lot of the things they wanted to do with like with Tolkien's work. But it was early enough that it didn't get like, you know, all the modern Hollywood crap and everything. It was just, it was the perfect time and place for that trilogy. And it's like any earlier or any later, and it could have been so much different and like so much worse, you know?
Yeah. And it still holds up to this day. If you rewatch the trilogy, it still looks amazing. You're 20 years on.
Yeah, the CGI was so good, which is so funny to me because there was other movies that were coming out about the same time, but you go back and you watch now and you're like, oh, that's kind of cheesy. Well, I mean, at the time it was amazing, but you look back now and you're like, wow.
Yeah, I mean, even like comparing Two Towers to Attack of the Clones that came out, I think the same year, or even like just so far apart. Like, I mean, I you know, I love Star Wars, but and you all know I'm a prequel girl, but like, there's no comparison to be had. Like, there's just like the level to which Weta went like in my opinion at that point surpassed Lucasfilms in like their creativity. Like they were building those computers as they were working. It's just incredible.
Jaden Hamilton, VHS is videotapes. That's what first came out. He's not kidding.
I was thinking too.
He's a member of my channel. They're VHS tapes. They're about this big, and you used to put them in a VCR, and it is all tape.
They're like $1 at your used thrift store.
Yeah, exactly.
Good luck finding a player.
That's like a larger cassette tape, you know, that just does video instead of music. Yeah.
Remember when they get broken and all the tape would come out and you'd have to sit there and rewind the whole thing?
Oh yeah. Or
someone didn't rewind it and then you'd have to rewind the thing before you could watch it.
So aggravating.
The crazy thing is too is George Lucas's CGI capture that he did for Jar Jar Binks. Like that set the bar. Like that was the first time that it ever. People forget this, but we laugh about Jar Jar Binks, but he was really the first time that has ever happened. And George Lucas did that, and so that led into Peter Jackson going, so for Smeagol and Gollum, what I'm thinking is this, and they were like, hey, only one other person has done this, and that's Lucasfilm. They're like, top dog, you sure? Oh, I'm sure. And it just shout out to George Lucas for that. Thank you, George.
Yeah, absolutely.
I take back everything nice I've ever said about Jaden Hamilton. He says we're also old.
Please be kind. Rewind.
You know what's,
I used to work a Hollywood video, and if we got a tape and I happened to catch it as you were dropping in or you returned it and I was scanning it back in and it was not rewound, we used to charge you like I think it was like 75 cents.
Yeah, I worked at Blockbuster like in college, and it was $1 if you didn't rewind.
Yeah. We have our little rewinder next to the cashier. We had to put it in, rewind it. $1 on the charge account.
What's great about this too is that you know, the Academy is not known for giving out awards to like big blockbusters, and yet all 3 years
11, right?
that this film that these films were coming out, they swept the awards ceremony. Like anything that you could think of, they were taking it home with them, which, like I said, is super rare for the Academy. but a huge win for what would be considered like almost blockbuster fantasy. So I think it's just a testament to how beautifully well done these films were, because they're not just the next big blockbuster video hit thing. They actually had meaning, they had substance, they had something more than just, the spectacle.
Yeah.
It was, and it was a huge testament to Weta as well, because at the time Weta, and I was lucky enough to visit there, they were working out of basically what was a shed on the outskirts of Wellington.
Yeah.
They were a baby company at the time.
They were.
They were tiny, tiny.
Yeah, absolutely. Salty, thank you so much, Nerpoil. Salty, what's your enduring memory of when you discovered Lord of the Rings?
I've told this story a couple different times, but in 1977, when the Rankin Bass animated Hobbit came out, I saw it in the theater. And at that time, no one had a VHS player. No one had a home video cassette thing. You either saw something live on television or you saw it in the theater and had to go see it again. And I was immediately hooked. It was a beautiful movie. It stuck with me. And then when I was 10 or 11, I picked up the actual Hobbit as a book. And it's a very, I would say, accessible book to a young reader. Not quite as accessible as the Lord of the Rings trilogy is, which I got into as a teenager, but it stuck with me, absolutely. And behind me over there, I've got the BBC full radio version of The Hobbit. And it's been in my life for 40 years. Awesome. And I can't imagine not having Tolkien as part of my fandom.
So Salty Gold is what we've established.
Yeah. Kiss my ass. Kiss my white ass. There you go.
Well, I knew y'all's answers would be sweeter than mine. So I didn't get into them until The Return of the King was due to hit theaters, and my parents, it must have been at the time, it must have been the VHSs, we must have gotten the DVDs later, but my mom and dad were watching The Two Towers. My first enduring memory of Lord of the Rings is the Dead Marshes. My mom's like, get out of here, this is going to give you bad dreams. Yeah. And because I had a horribly overactive imagination as a kid, and so she's like, leave, go, this is scary. And so I like booked it out of there. But then that I was like, I want to know what this is. And so they sat down and watched The Two Towers with me. I don't know why I watched The Two Towers first. My parents are the definition of normies. But we watched The Two Towers first. And I remember, so my next memory would be that Aragorn takes that young man by the shoulder and says, there's always hope. And I was like, whoa, that was like, it was just so incredible to see this man who was kind of like on the brink of like, why do we keep going? And he says to this young boy, there is always hope. And that, he's got a good sword and everything. So Helm's Deep is kind of what I remember next. And like I was venting on Salty's stream the other night, what makes Helm's Deep so impactful is, again, not all those elves standing on the ramparts. It's the women and children in the caves. And that scene always makes me tear up. That is what we fight for. And that's the purity that we fight for. Yeah. So that's my enduring memory of getting into Lord of the Rings, and like you said, like Johnny, like Legolas with his arrows, like all the time. It's just like, that's so cool.
Unlimited arrows. Unlimited. I like how that was like the joke, and then the next, I think it was Two Towers, we actually physically see him like pick an arrow up and be like, because everybody was like, does he not run out of arrows? Like,
what's funny is I think in the original version, it's something like, I wish I had the count memorized, but it was something like 4 or 5 arrows in the theatrical version. And then the extended version is something like 7 arrows. They make it a little longer. And apparently in the whole like uncut version, it's even longer. Like apparently there's like a 10 or 11 arrow version. And I'm like, I want to see that. Like just to the point where it's just a meme where he's just like going all day. But yeah.
Let me shout out Zax, who is at 999.
Oh my God.
Who's
1,000.
Who's going to be the 1,000th subscriber? Zax already has plenty of watch hours. If you haven't subscribed to Zax 7, please do so. He has been my wingman since I started doing this. So hail to everybody.
Zax has given me much good advice, so I can't recommend him enough.
You're this close to being timed out.
Stop it, Jaden.
I'm 18. They came out before I was born. Get out!
Like I was thinking about the Two Towers today. I was like, they're almost 20 years old. That makes my heart hurt.
Yeah.
I think it's cool. I like being able to share these movies with people who haven't
Me
seen
too.
them, you know, and it's
Yeah.
just like,
Because
oh,
we
you
were
get to
there.
experience it the first time. It's like every time I hear that, I'm just like, do it now, and it's gonna be one of the greatest nights of your life. Remember
Yeah.
this forever. Like,
Yeah, like my sister and brother-in-law. My sister seeing it for the very first time when they were sick over the holidays, and she's like, "I'm sorry, I called you a nerd for this. This is really cool." And then she went off and made half of her Dungeons and Dragons characters named after people. So I was like, "You call me a dork." So
there was a lot of that with these movies because, like, even like we were into it, and the movie had like finished being in theaters and everything. My dad, my brothers, like we were, the whole family was basically hooked, with the exception of my mom after Fellowship. And we were playing the movie on like DVD or whatever at home, and it was the part with the Nazgul, the ring wraiths, and where Frodo's like, "Get off the road, quick!" And you know, they got to be hiding and everything. And she just like stopped and like started paying attention. She was like so caught up in the scene. She was like, "Okay, I think I need to watch this." She's like, "You want to start this over and I'll watch along?" And now she's arguably the biggest Lord of the Rings fan out of all of us. Like, yeah, so it just has that effect on people where they're just like, "Oh no, it's not for me." It's like, just give it a shot. Give it a shot.
Yeah.
See what happens.
I do.
Always the extended editions, though, isn't it? Nobody ever recommends the theatrical cut with these.
I do, just because the theatrical editions are so long. I'm like, look, watch the normal ones, and then we'll talk about you expanding your fandom into the extended editions, just because they're so long. And so many people, you're like, it's a 4.5 hour movie, and you're like, I'm good. You know what I mean? Start off small, and then we'll expand you.
I have a
do
couple
like
donations. Sorry, let me just read these two donations really fast.
Go ahead.
I know what I'm going to forget. I have Roman of the Empire for $10. Thank you so much, Roman. Happy birthday, Alasia. You are a force for good in the universe, and I am grateful to know you. Well, thank you so much, Roman. I deeply appreciate that. And then I have a $10 from Zax. Happy birthday, Alasia. Keep doing what you're doing and have fun in Dallas. Thank you both so much.
Nice.
I'm just going to give you guys one clip because I don't want to derail conversation. So this is for you guys.
Now is the hour. Riders of Rohan, oaths you have taken. Now fulfill them all to Lord and land.
Hell yes.
I know, right, girl?
So good.
I'm sorry, all these Carl Urban bandwagon kids because of The Boys. I'm like, excuse me.
Excuse me.
You do not get to lust over Carl Urban here if you did not find him attractive with that stupid wig on.
Yeah.
Right? And his armor that like put his shoulders out to here.
Oh my god. And then he was in that movie Doom with The Rock, which is terrible, but no man. Anywho, if you didn't like Carl Urban then, I don't want to hear it about The Boys. Yeah.
Well, it's funny because he did Lord of the Rings, and he has so many excellent parts as Éomer. And then from Lord of the Rings, he did the Star Trek, the revamped Star Trek series. He was Bones and that. He did Doom, and then he also did Dread, which is arguably one of the best comic
Pitch
adaptations for. And so, and people were still like, "Who's Carl Urban?"
I know.
And I was like, "Dude." Like, you
I know.
need to get on these movies. So
He was also in Ragnarok as well, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was.
That's right. That's right.
He was Scourge, and he has all those
and isn't he
AR-15s and stuff.
And Riddick too, the Riddick movies.
Isn't he also in Katie Lee Sackhoff quite a bit? Aren't they married?
No, are they? I didn't know that.
I did not know.
Did that come out wrong? Did that come out wrong?
But are they? I'm gonna Google it. Are they married? Oh my god.
Yeah, Texas got a mission. Okay, well I have to throw.
No, he's married to Natalie Wihongi. No, wait.
Oh.
Hold on. I've got tea.
Look at Salty starting gossip.
I've got gossip now.
He's trying to create drama between Carl Urban and his lady.
That's all I do.
I have a wild card question that I want to throw at you
They
all.
broke up, Salty. They broke
What's
up.
that?
They broke up.
Oh,
They were dating.
then-
They were never married, but they broke
okay.
up. Dang it! That makes me sad.
I was
Okay.
close. So
You
he
were close.
was repeatedly in
Was.
Katie's
That means he's
exact role
single.
as well. Okay, yeah.
All right.
Be right
All right.
back.
What's your wild card question? What's a wild card question?
All right, I want to know because we all love the extended editions. I want to know, have you guys watched the cast commentary of the movies themselves?
Yes.
One.
No.
Yes.
I refuse.
Once.
I refuse. Refuse.
Why? Oh my god, they're so good.
They're so funny.
I refuse
I love
because
behind the scenes stuff. The commentary. Oh man.
I know it's like every real Lord of the Rings fan has to watch it. I've heard it over and over again. I refuse to do it. The reason being is I feel strongly about this. The movies are sacred, and as standalone art, they're like perfection. Okay, I don't want any bit of the actors in the movies. I don't want to think about who they are or what they think or like what they're like outside of the movies. I want to know them as the characters in Lord of the Rings. And so, their commentaries or what their relationships were like behind the sets or what their inside jokes are. I don't want to know that crap. I just want the movies, purely the movies by themselves.
Hold
so
on.
when people are like, you got to listen to commentary, I'm like, no, I
You've
separate.
never watched
okay?
the appendices?
I'm not watching anything other than the art
man.
itself.
The behind
no.
the scenes stuff is my favorite part about a movie. Like I've
Same
been
here.
fan posting all the Maverick stuff because they filmed this stuff in real jets, and it's just cool to see how it. I mean, I get where you're coming from. A lot of people feel the same way you do because it's like revealing the magic trick and takes the magic away, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But the commentaries of the movie, God, I haven't watched that in forever, are so freaking funny, and they have them broken up. They're all in separate rooms. Like they have the three guys here
That's
together.
what
and
I'm
each here
talking
together.
about, though, Tugs. Have
Yeah.
you watched the cast commentary of the movie itself? If like you watch,
Yeah.
and like when Billy Boyd and Dominic Monaghan are making fun of Sauron holding the Palantir, and they're like, he's got a bowling ball. That is, oh my god, I like start crying. It's so funny.
It's so funny. No, they narrate as the movie goes on. Like you're watching it with them, and they're talking about, this happened here and this happened here. But they weren't all together in the same room. There were a couple of them in separate rooms, and I can't remember who was paired with who. I think the Hobbits were together or something.
Yeah.
But it's funny. It's so funny. And then the way they edit it too is like Billy Boyd will be telling a story about this guy over here, and then they cut to that guy, and he's telling the same story but from his perspective, and it's just it's cool. It's cool.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie though, there's a part of me that's already like, even without that stuff, that's kind of like, I'm an old man, I'm a curmudgeon, but when I go to the theater and I watch this movie again, because every once in a while they'll have like throwback nights, it's kind of annoying how meme to hell this movie has been, like these movies have been, because I'll be watching a scene and it'll be like, what do your elf eyes see? They're taking the hobbits to Isengard. And then everybody's laughing hysterically in the theater. And that happens a lot. Like there's a lot of scenes now where people just start laughing throughout. I'm like, damn it, you're ruining my immersion.
That's supposed to be funny.
I just like, so I don't know. I try to separate that. I'm like, I just want to keep the movie the movie.
Yeah.
I know my theater, like they let you rent out theaters every once in a while. And so if you like pay like $120, you can rent it out for like up to 20 people. And so I might just do that and take like 3 people with me who aren't going to be laughing throughout. So and watch Lord of the Rings again.
I've not experienced that. I saw Fellowship. They did. They put it back in the theater here a few years ago for some. I don't remember which anniversary it was. And they put it back in theater, and everybody was there was a bunch of younger people that were coming in for the first time with like their parents. And that's how old I am. And, bringing their little kids and stuff in. And so everybody it was cool because I've seen it before. So I got to look around and see everybody experiencing it for the first time. The people who hadn't seen it, and their eyes were just like this big. It was awesome. But every time I see one does not simply walk into Mordor, I'm like, dang it.
I know.
Do the meme.
So it begins. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, because some of those moments, like the gravity of him saying that, like you sense it in that moment. Like that shouldn't just make you giggle. Like that is, there's a lot of weight in what he says. Like you really don't grasp like what we're being asked to do here.
Well,
it's like
the biggest example of that is when Aragorn breaks his toe, and everyone the meme now is like, hey, did you know that Aragorn or Vigo broke his toe or whatever? But the weight of that scene is that Aragorn has failed. He has failed in his mission, in his quest to protect the hobbits, and in his failure, in his utter rage and frustration and sadness, he kicks one of the heads towards the camera or whatever. So like you were saying, there are weights. There is weight to these scenes, and when you get behind the scenes a little bit too much, you kind of disassociate yourself with the art, like you said. So
Exactly.
I do understand that. The part that I would kind of say, for me, I was glad that I watched the appendices, not necessarily the commentary, but the appendices, is that Weta goes into depth as far as character designs, armor designs, how the horses were chosen, how the landscape was decided on, and which actually made me, when I rewatched the movies, go, this is Rohan. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
This isn't New Zealand. This
Yeah.
is Rohan. And because of the commentary that was spoken into existence of, we found this place because of X, Y, and Z, or we built this hall like X, Y, and Z. So that would be my only thing that made me feel like more attached. But like you said, I can definitely see the disassociation when you realize, oh, these are just people,
Yeah. Hold on, real quick.
Alasia, Jaden Hamilton wants to know, other than Lord of the Rings, what is your favorite fantasy series?
Off the top of my head, probably Tamara Pierce's Tortall Saga. They're quick, easy reads. But I think Tamara Pierce is one of the best authors of the 80s. I love The Inheritance Cycle by Christopher Paolini. It's about dragon riders, and it's Lord of the Rings meets OG Star Wars. If you're ever in need of a good, quick, easy fantasy read, these 4 books are fantastic. So yeah, off the top of my head, those are my favorite. But I have a donation, and then Purple, I know you want to talk about the production and like what went into the production. So Johnny, you can just sit and twiddle your thumbs since you haven't watched the appendices.
Go for it.
So let me get to this donation, and then Purple, I'd love to hear what because I know you said you really wanted to talk about that. So real quickly, $5 from Abinas. Sending love to my amazing editor. I am following your direction as best I can. I am happy to hear that, Abinas. Thank you so much. Thank you. And I am going to give you this clip.
The city of Ascilia has been reclaimed for Gondor!
Nice.
The only
So
thing
good.
that should have been left in the theatrical cuts, I think it's that one because it explains Boromir's character so well. So anyway,
the fact that he's completely disassociated, or just you never see him in Gondor. That would have been nice. That would have been nice.
So Purple, my dear, take it away. What is it about the production that I think that you think is about these movies that you loved?
I think it's the level of detail that everybody committed to, not just the actors, the directors, the producers, but even people, as you say, just working on the set. We had stories of guys who made the armor, and they've basically rubbed off their fingerprints putting together these links by hand. That's how dedicated they were. We've got stories of the actors saying that the inside of the costumes were all kind of woven, and there was like prints of horses, and you never see the inside, but just wearing these costumes made them feel like the embodiment of these characters. And they didn't have to do any of this, but they stepped it up, and it really shows through with the performances that it got from them. And I think you couldn't have had a better cast. I mean, I can't imagine anybody else playing any of these roles, whereas in other films you can kind of do the fan casting and kind of swap people out, but everybody embodied these characters perfectly. I can't imagine anybody but Ian McKellen playing Gandalf.
Yeah. Agreed.
Yep.
And Viggo Mortensen being Aragorn. And there were so many choices that we knew about. Nick Cage was one of them, I believe. Who else was there? There were like 3 or 4 other people that were heavily under consideration to be Aragorn, other than Viggo.
Wasn't it's Viggo's son that actually convinced him to play the role?
Yep. Yeah, it's like the same deal with the guy who had to pick up Dumbledore's shoes after that actor died. I can't think of his name. That his granddaughter said, "Grandpa, if you don't play Dumbledore, I'll never speak to you again." It was kind of the same instance that his son came in and was like, "What is that?" And it was a script for Fellowship, and he's like, "Dad, you have to take that role." So it just, and again, it speaks to the level of kids just picking up a book and being like, "Oh my gosh, this is the coolest thing ever."
Yeah. And Nerdporial is right. It was Daniel Day-Lewis who potentially could have been Aragorn. Of course, he already kind of was Aragorn in The Last of the Mohicans, which I think is a great movie. So
I can kinda. That's better than Nick Cage. Dear
No
God.
kidding. Ugh.
Can we stop like trying to put Nick Cage in badass
It's
roles?
everything.
Just
No.
retire that.
No, we're gonna
Yes.
keep doing it until it sticks. That's the trick. We just have to
I'm-
keep
I'm
doing
with-
it. Yeah.
I'm with Johnny on this one.
You nearly
don't
ruined
think
Lord of the
he
Rings, Nick
belongs-
Cage.
Fire.
Like, no, we can't play around with that fire, okay?
Please
God.
no.
Well,
Fire.
Please no.
That's what's so scary is that he has been this close from Lord of the Rings and Superman, potentially
Mhm.
two of the largest like icons you could think of, and he was almost cast in both. That's a scary thought. But
Yeah. So I brought this up, and Purple, I'm sure you are, well, you know about Sutton Hoo. It's,
Oh
I
yes,
always remember.
I recognize this. Yes,
yeah,
very much.
I would just love to go to Sutton Hoo. That's like, it's my biggest regret when I was living in Ireland. I didn't get over to Britain because I wanted to see Sutton Hoo since I learned about it. But, you're talking about the level of detail that went into the production. Like, this is the helmet. So this is a recreation of the helmet that they found at Sutton Hoo. And do y'all know what Sutton Hoo is? Do we all know what this is?
Mhm.
Yep.
Okay. You don't, Max? Okay. Well, all right. So Sutton Hoo was a Anglo-Saxon burial mound that was found in Britain. And it was literally a burial mound. And if you think back to the Northman, when he goes down into the cave to get the sword, that's a burial mound. And there are tons of these all over Denmark. And the Danish government will not let them dig them up. But like they think that the treasures that are in Denmark could rival what's at Sutton Hoo. But we'll never know because they're refusing to. And I can see that. I understand why they're doing that. Because once they uncovered the boat that the king was buried in, the wood disintegrated. I mean, we lost everything. Anything that wasn't metal, we lost. And it's quite sad. But so these are some of the treasures that they found at Sutton Hoo. This is this lapis-lazuli? I know that's garnet. And this is gold.
Yes, I think
Blue
it
is,
was. Yes.
Yeah. So they always said that that Rohan was what Anglo-Saxon England should have been, that this is what should have happened when the Vikings showed up. Sorry, Max. But they should have thrown off that invasion. And Sutton Hoo is like the epitome of the height of what was going on in English 6 in England. And if you put Theoden's helmet next to this one, it's like you wouldn't be able to tell them apart. That's like how much care they took to make sure that Rohan looked like the Anglo-Saxons. And I think that's incredible, because if you do hold up like what we think men from Anglo-Saxon England would have been wearing in battle versus what the Rohan were wearing, I mean, they really went all out for that.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And I think it's like, for me, it's like the level of detail, but also like Peter Jackson and just like they just really took their time with it.
Yeah.
Like if you, the Fellowship of the Ring and the world building, it really takes its time. And I can't listen. Not everybody has to like Lord of the Rings. I judge you a little bit secretly, but those people who just say like they just fell asleep during the movies, I'm just
That's
like,
true.
it's just so sad because you're missing like, it's just like that world building is so pivotal to setting up Fellowship and making the rest of the trilogy as great as it is. The fact that they were trusting the audience to take their time with it. And God, I appreciate that so much. Just really fleshing out all the Fellowship and all the different characters and everything. It's so good.
And Peter Jackson was the defender, not of his vision of what Tolkien was, but of Tolkien himself.
Yeah.
We've covered this on my show, where he went to various production companies who wanted to fundamentally change the tone and story that was in The Lord of the Rings. In the case of Harvey Weinstein, he wanted to kill a bunch of hobbits and make it a more hard R horror movie. Horror with 2 R's, and he walked away from that deal. But it makes you think about the thing we're not going to talk about tonight. Was anybody there doing it? Because I think the one person who did got jacked out of it. But
Yeah. Real quickly, sorry, I have one other quick donation from Cajun Corey, $5. Happy birthday, Elijah. Please, no video. All right, Cajun. Well, thank you for the $5. I won't interrupt the stream, but. Well, I mean, and Johnny, I remember I caught one of G&G's streams when you guys were in Florida from the Airbnb you guys were renting. You were all in one room together, and you were having a discussion specifically about Rings of Power. And you said you like the level to which you adore Lord of the Rings is that you would take half your savings and be willing to put it in to make a good show. And it's like I was like yelling at my phone. I was like, yes, sign me up. We're gonna do that. I will help you, because and I think that that's like, it's not just that Jackson put in the level of like they literally said it's like this is an archaeological dig when they were making Amon Hen. They're like, this is an archaeological dig that we are just rediscovering and we are just brushing off the dirt. Like that's the level of care that they took with foam core and made it look like the Numenorians had at one time been there. That level of like dedication is just not normal now. And and I think that it's not just that Jackson and his team took that level of detail. It's that they inspired the fans that like, no, this is how you approach this material. He like the fans took up that call and were like, yeah, no, we want to make sure that this is good.
Yeah. And Tolkien really, I mean, inspired so many other great fantasy series. You know, of course, I'm going to mention Robert Jordan's Wheel of Time, but also Brandon Sanderson, Terry Brooks, Brent Weeks. I would say there's a whole cast of other people, including George R.R. Martin. You know, and they had their own takes, but they took a lot of the tropes, and I hate that word more than you could possibly imagine. But they took a lot of the concepts of good and evil and fighting and taking this sort of English in Anglo prehistory and then turning it into their own version of it. So,
Yes. We also had back in the day the Tolkien Society that Jackson had to prove himself to, you know, when Christopher Tolkien was alive. They did not want them to do these films unless they could prove that they were going to honor the books and honor Tolkien's legacy.
And that's just the thing, is like Jackson was never given anything. And I think Salty and Purple mentioned this perfectly. He had to prove himself to the production company and to the Tolkien Society. He was not given the rights. He wasn't given any type of, creative integrity to say, yeah, just kind of do whatever you want. He was following exactly what he thought was going to be from text to screen, and then had to promote that, as opposed to someone giving all this stuff to someone and going, hey, you make it. You just do it. We'll give you the money. We'll do everything, you know.
It's interesting, Max, because I got attacked by the Fellowship of the Fans about another thing that has to do with Middle-earth, but it's not in any way. And they said, because I brought up those two knuckleheads that are doing the rings thing, you know, what qualifications do they have? And literally, this is a Tolkien fan site society said to me on a live stream, well, who was Peter Jackson to be given Tolkien's world? What did he do other than make crappy horror movies? I think that's a logical fallacy, because in that, you know, Peter Jackson was fighting for the integrity of what Tolkien wrote.
Right.
And I don't like this revisionist history nonsense that's going on right now. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's the beauty of a passion project. You know, that's what it was for Peter Jackson. And nowadays you have so many people given roles and given opportunities, and they're movie runners, showrunners, all that sort of thing, for something that has nothing to do with their own personal passion about the source material. And so it's just, I mean, how many other, you know, fictional stories, movies, you know, do you have where you had a director who fought for his story that hard? You know, who was that passionate about the source material? I can't really think of many examples. It really is a unique thing.
Well, I think
George Lucas to a certain degree, also Francis Ford Coppola, I think to a certain degree, but that was a generation of particular directors, you know, at least in my opinion.
Well, anybody that says that makes fun of Peter Jackson, well, he's a horror director, and that is so irrelevant now, because I've found that the horror directors are more passionate about their movies than most modern mainstream directors ever. I mean, look at the last few superhero movies. James Gunn, David Sandberg, and James Wan. Both started all of their careers doing horror. James Gunn was more of like a horror comedy borderline, but he did Slither, and look at the passion they put into their movies. They don't have books to go off of like Tolkien and all, like Peter Jackson did, don't have defended or anything, but the passion, you can tell the difference. Shazam is a highly regarded DCEU film out of that giant mess. that we've gotten because David Sandberg was like, no, we're going to do this. And he puts his little touches into it. So to say that ignorant statement of, well, he's a horror director, what does he know? The horror movie directors have the biggest fight because people don't want to see your movie. It's too violent. It's too gory. It's too scary. It's too this. It's too blah, 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 blah. So I would take a horror movie director and making a movie over.
Well, the thing is, I mean, if you, we've seen footage in the appendices. They show footage of Jackson's early movies. I mean, talk about he didn't have the funds. He didn't have the studios. Like he was just making this stuff in his backyard. The level to which he must have sold his passion and his love for this work is just mind-boggling. Like he was able to say, like, no, I am the right person for this because I will do my utmost to ensure that this is done respectfully and well. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And there's that clip we've all seen on Charlie Rose where Peter Jackson, we've heard it over and over and over again. We didn't want to put our vision, our politics, our worldview in Tolkien's story. We wanted to tell his story. Full stop.
I wish she would have done Halo. Why didn't that pan out? Gosh dang it. That should have panned out.
I was so excited.
I want to, while Purple's still here, I want to ask the panel something. And let me know if I'm out of line, guys. But Johnny brought up a really good point that I wanted to ask y'all. But one of the things that people tend to do with the trilogy of the Lord of the Rings films, not necessarily the books, but the films themselves, is to dismiss everything and just go, that's boring. Or like, why didn't the Eagles take them to Mordor? Or like, I get it. It's just a bunch of people walking. And I'm like, I could say the same exact thing for Star Wars. Like, it's just a bunch of people playing with lightsabers.
Yeah.
What's with the brother and sister being like weirdly, together? Like, what's with this big dog Wookiee thing? I could do that same disassociative arguments, but they would be totally disingenuous and inauthentic. So do you guys think that the Star Wars complaints, or the people that say that Star Wars is much better, do you think those complaints are necessarily warranted? And is there any like real weight to people who are like, it's just a bunch of people walking for 3 days or whatever, which technically is years that they compressed. But yeah, I don't know, because it makes me so mad when I hear they were just walking the whole time, and I'm just like, you have no idea, no clue.
Some people just don't have the attention span. Like the movies need to be shorter because they just want to get entertained quickly. I think a lot of normie fans tend to be like that, and honestly, like I've had people like that in my life that need those shorter films, that have complained that Lord of the Rings was too long or they've fallen asleep, but they're not the kind of people who have these kind of conversations and who watch these kind of podcasts. I'm just being honest. They're not the super hardcore fans that are just going to be digging into all the different ins and outs of the lore and the world building and all that sort of thing. It just doesn't interest them as much. So I don't really concern myself with that. I like the fact that the sense of adventure, like I can't even freaking run up a hill now and not just think like, dun, 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 dun. It's like the running, the adventure, the going from point A to point B, and just seeing how hard it was for them to get there. It's legendary. It's awesome. And the Eagles thing, don't even freaking get me started. There's winged Nazguls. They know they're coming. That would be aerial warfare, and they'd lose the ability to sneak.
Well, Manwë and Iluvatar literally said, you cannot. You're part of the Maiar. You literally are not allowed to interfere because we messed up Middle Earth so badly with Morgoth. Stay out of this. So literally the Eagles couldn't.
Well, from the beginning and even to the very end, the point, or one of the points of Frodo being the ring bearer was that they could sneak him in. He would be low profile, and he does. He does sneak in. Like Sauron freaking flips out when he's like, "Oh my God, he's at the mountain!" like goes right over there immediately. And if you're flying in, and they can sense the ring, and you've got winged Nazgul, you're freaking screwed. You can't just take Like,
Yeah, and Shield Wall of Dragons says, I mean, what a lot of us think about these movies, The Lord of the Rings is about relationships and sacrifice, individually as well as for your friends and as a group. What they are actually doing in the story is less important. I see where you're going with that, but I think it's all woven together so well by Tolkien. But there is continual sacrifice for each other for a greater good. You know, it's
Yeah.
and if you don't have that wired within you as a human being, you're not going to get it. That's my take.
I mean, these are the same people that were, when I was in high school, were in advanced English, honors English, for those of you, whatever you call it, depending on where you're from, in high school, that reading books out loud was like trying to get a 2-year-old to sit still on an airplane. Like they just can't do it. This, especially the modern generation, I know it started with mine and it's just spiraled from downhill. Beowulf, boring. The Great Gatsby, boring. To Kill a Mockingbird,
kidding?
boring.
Wow.
I'm like, these are amazing stories. What are you talking about? But I've also been reading since I could read.
Yeah.
So I get where it's just a disassociation thing. People go to the movies to be entertained, which I do too. Give it. Dinosaurs. Yep. Absolutely believable. Sure. Yep. Totally Roman. Yep. Chris Pratt punched that dinosaur. That's believable. I can go and do that. But I also appreciate the more mature movies where you have a story, you have to pay attention, you have to sit there, and even though it's going to be a while, you know, you either go to there for cinema or you go there for entertainment, and sometimes they cross and sometimes they're two completely different.
because the intricacies of Lord of the Rings, it's like we're the kind of fans who could watch a video just dissecting the character arc of Aragorn. Like you could even argue like his character arc is fulfilled in the first movie to a certain extent, or at least a good portion of it, to where he gets to the point where he's been fearing the fact that he's Isildur's heir. Like he is in line to screw up the same way Isildur did. And by the end of it, Frodo's offering him the ring, which tempts everyone, and even more so Aragorn. This is in line with what Aragorn's envisioned. This is the part where he takes the ring.
Yeah.
And he just covers up Frodo's hand and said, I would have gone with you to the end, and he lets him go. And it's just like, yes, Aragorn, like stuff like that, you know. It's like we saw his character arc, we saw him overcome, you know, and it's like things like that. It just goes so beyond like, oh, you know, it's just boring. Why are they having this like a little emotional conversation? Can we get back to orcs fighting? I need like more explosions. Like, miss me with that.
But I think you're also covering on something that I think a lot of us have talked about in our own shows, which is we seem to be missing the hero's journey, that no one has the time to build a character to go from point A to point B. And we can even compress it more than that, a 3-act play, which is the foundation of Western civilization and telling history, but also in entertainment. And the thing about that is that the first 2 acts of that are more than just foreplay. You know, you're going to get to the climax in the 3rd act, which is what the 3rd act is, but you need to sort of make people interested and arouse them in their intellectual curiosity as well as an emotional response for that climax in the 3rd act to pay off. Otherwise, there's nothing to it. It's just empty. And maybe that's a reflection of our current culture. I don't know. But sometimes it's okay to make sweet, sweet love with a story. You know?
Yeah, but you can't do that anymore, which is why, you know, the #1 movie in the world right now shocks me for various reasons, but it's a little bit on the slower side. It's a little bit, the action hits it at the end. It's an older movie, sequel to an older movie. It's all of these things about these same people complaining about topic A, B, and C, however long now. And it's a slow burn. It's not a quick burn. It's a slow burn movie, and it's dominating the box office right now. And I'm like, will you guys hear your, but you can't watch Lord of the Rings, because that takes too long. We can't watch the first 3 seasons of Game of Thrones because it's just really boring, but it picks up after that. Well, yes, it does to its detriment. Some say, most people say, but it moves too fast. But then you're complaining that it's moving too fast. Like, what? Please focus.
Thank you.
Purple, what do you make of Max's comment?
Yeah, I agree with you guys. It seems fundamentally the people that have this argument are the ones that really lack imagination. And I love popcorn flicks as much as anybody else. You know, it's great to sit down, you can turn your brain off and just sit back and relax. But the whole idea of these films and the books is that you're supposed to go on the journey with these characters.
Yes.
The whole idea of the Hobbits is that anybody can be a hero. You don't have to be this kind of hulking 6-foot masculine guy or you know, warrior princess. It can be the most unassuming person who can make the biggest difference.
And why do you think why do you think New Zealand became this destination place that everyone wanted to go to all of a sudden? Because of all the walking around through Middle Earth, all the freaking traveling through it. Like how much of Lord of the Rings is just the landscape and just the awe of like what we saw. Like they really nailed it with that. And so I can't even imagine like what the movie would be like if you tried to remove some of that or tried to separate some of the journey or the adventure. It would cheapen the quest to Mordor. It would just feel like it was unearned, you know. And to a certain extent, some book fans, I think, even believe that it is already the movies, like because it's much more of a drag in the books for Frodo and Sam to get to Mordor. Like it is a drag. But at the same time, there is the argument that like it just makes it feel that much more rewarding when you get there. Like you feel like to a certain extent that you are suffering with these characters and you're just like, I just want to be there, you know?
And when I saw this in the theater, The Fellowship 20 years ago, like a lot of people, it seemed like, how are they going to compress all the events of the story? Because there really was a lot to the story. And now to have people saying, oh, it's so slow. And it's like, you know, maybe this isn't for you. Maybe there's Sex in the City over there. Or maybe there's, you know, I don't know, reality television. But
you think that's slow? Wait till you watch the extended version.
I know, which I love. It's the only way to watch it. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
There's another, you know, there's a great, and I'll just, you know, for example, I'll just talk about the Fellowship, but there's a great kind of pacing that I see throughout that is ups and downs, which is basically, for those of you who haven't seen it, spoilers, the Mines of Moria is action, going from this place, introducing the Balrog, Gandalf's sacrifice, and then the sorrow, the hurt, the pain. And then they go into the forest, and there is that slow moment of meeting the elves, going through and taking their time to introduce this whole world of Lothlorien, and then them leaving Lothlorien. And then you pick back up, like right after Johnny says, Aragorn gives the ring back to Frodo, and with tears in his eyes, he goes, I would have gone with you till the end. And then we pick right back up, and he turns around, and what do we see? A wall of Uruk-hai just waiting for him. And he's just like, bring it on. And then we pick right back up. So it's this natural progression of ups and downs and allowing yourself to go on this ride. And, you know, it gives you chills just talking about it and just watching it and listening to it. But that alone, and that's just one portion of one film. And so that's why you could, you know, really delve into each one of these films more and more and more that have beautiful pacing.
You're describing a symphony, Max. You know, just in the way you were talking about it. And a symphony builds, and a symphony has those peaking moments. But it also requires you to pay attention. You have to be engaged. There are a lot of moving pieces and talented people making a symphony. And I think that's maybe why people are derogatory toward these films, other than just the ideology ridiculousness. But these films, Peter Jackson created 3 masterful symphonies that just happened to be in Middle Earth. It's perfect analogy, dude.
And the thing is, you know, okay, so when we finally got them on DVD, and this must have been when I was like, I'd say 15, 16, I watched the extended cuts, and this is when the extended cuts were out. So yeah, this had to be when I was about 16. I watched them every single weekend for a solid year. Like every single weekend. It was a little unhealthy, but I just sat there and to this day, and then, you know, the thing is, I didn't watch them, I'd say, for a good 15 years, because I literally can recite them at this point. And also and we might get into this a little bit later, but it sparked so much love in me for just fantasy as a whole. And the rabbit hole I went down, I mean, you all know I've got 9 bookshelves. So just the rabbit hole I went down with fantasy. And so I never lost my love for Lord of the Rings, but it just opened up so many doors for me. But anyways, to this day, when I started rewatching them, and because I was lucky enough to see the extended cuts in my local theater just a few months ago, they are the only movies that I will like literally turn my phone off, not touch it. I won't knit because I have this thing about like sitting still and not using my hands. I always have to be productive. So I will knit almost all the time when I'm watching movies. I will sit there and stare at the screen and not do a single other thing. Like that's the reverence I hold these movies with. It's just like,
Sure.
I can't not pay attention. Like anything else, like, and the Hobbit trilogy, I can throw on for background noise. I can listen to that while I'm working at my computer. I don't feel the need to sit there and stare at the screen. But with Lord of the Rings, like if I try to put that on for background noise, I stop functioning. It's like I have to sit there and watch it. So like there's almost like this hollowed sense of like you have to pay respects to these movies.
Alasia, are you saying you don't want to be laser focused on the dwarves going in a river with a bunch of barrels and like going down this like weird windy road?
Easy.
Yeah.
Purple Valkyrie's gonna hit you. Purple Valkyrie's gonna hit you. She
That's fine.
First.
That's fine.
I like the extended first Hobbit. Yes.
I was told in Orlando with some of the team members that the extended version is better of The Hobbit. I've been hating on the Hobbit movies for a while, but I'll give the extendeds a shot because people have been saying they're better. But
yeah, they are. The only thing that I too. The only thing that I really love about the Hobbit movies as a whole is that 10-minute, like that, just the White Council. So we get it in the first movie and we get it in the third movie, and that's about it. And I have deeper respect for Thranduil's characterization now that I have read the Unfinished Tales. He wasn't just some salty, prissy, whatever. Like that's actually how he was. Like his father had a beef with Celeborn and Galadriel. Didn't want to be near him. They were of Doriath, and so he did not want to be anywhere near Moria. So that's why they removed to Mirkwood in the way that they did. Like Thranduil's been through some crap, and I'm like, oh, you make more sense now. So I have a deeper respect for Thranduil now, even though I did like him. But yeah, he was that's actually kind of in keeping with how Tolkien characterized him in the Unfinished Tales. So, so yeah.
I do enjoy Richard Armitage's portrayal of Thorin as well.
Yeah.
Regardless of how the three films spanned out and the pacing and the acting of different characters and the introduction of like all these different relationships and themes.
Yeah.
The one thing that I continued to really enjoy and remained consistent for me, like every one of Thorin's actions seemed like in line with his character.
Yeah.
All he wants is his mountain and the Arkenstone. Like that's it. That is the only reason why he exists in his mind, So Richard, I think, did a fantastic job of portraying that on the screen.
Yeah. You can pick out some great scenes. I mean, as a whole, you can kind of say, well, they weren't as good. They were just trying to emulate the previous trilogy, and that's a lot on the Hollywood trying to push them in that direction. But I thought the introduction of the dwarves was really well done.
That's my favorite part.
Riddles in the Dark, I thought was a great scene.
Oh yeah. And it's funny how much of that original Rankin Bass movie was represented in what Peter Jackson did with the first Hobbit movie. I mean, the singing was the same type of throwing of the plates, and everything was the same. The way that they made Smaug look with a lot of the scenes was just the way that Rankin and Bass captured in the 77 animation. It was wild to watch.
Wasn't part of the reason the Hobbit trilogy was a hot mess was because Peter Jackson didn't have control like he did with New Line?
Lots of studio interference, lots of studio from several different studios because there was different parts of ownership. That was why the Love Triangle was in there. That was why it was 3 films. Like there's a lot of things. It just totally changed everything.
He didn't want to do any of that.
Yeah, he should have just been trusted with that. And he was stressed out the entire time. I mean, people talk about Lord of the Rings like being on set like it's like the greatest 3 years of their life. People talk about being a part of The Hobbit like when they feel like they're safe to talk about it, like it was a nightmare. And so it's just a totally different atmosphere.
The way he lost after.
I remember that. Did you guys watch the his YouTube vlogs during that time? Like, oh my gosh, like his slow degrade. It was kind of scary to watch.
Well, it's sad because it's like it's indicative of a lot of stuff that's going on right now that's just destroying a lot of modern IPs. Is the fact that once they see that there's money in something, that it's a cash cow, that's when these studios, these big companies try to get their filthy hands on it and make it in their image. They want to make it the way they want to make it, you know? And it's like Lord of the Rings, that was like hardcore fans were looking forward to it, but we didn't know what was coming. We didn't know that it was going to be the awesome movie trilogy that it was, that we would be saying for years, this is the greatest movie trilogy of all time. But Peter Jackson was passionate about it. But by the time The Hobbit comes out, it's been well established what Lord of the Rings is. And now all these studios, you know, get their hands on it and want to make it the way they want to make it. And it just messed it up.
Yeah, and that current project, which we won't talk about, has 27 different producers.
Yes.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
It's just too much. And WB is notorious, I think, at this point for their interference. Sometimes good, sometimes bad. It's just hit or miss. But they're notorious for their interference. And I think that's the biggest difference, is because New Line did Lord of the Rings, and it was only New Line, if I remember right. And WB acquired them later. And so it's these two big giant studio heads. New Line's a baby compared to Warner Brothers, even though they're really not. Peter Jackson wasn't even the original director, if I remember right. And so he had to come in and take over this mess. But he couldn't do what he wanted to do. And Warner Brothers wouldn't let him do it. And New Line's like, no, let him do it. He's the one who did this. You're the reason we're in this mess in the first place. Please save us. Like, Peter, save us. And he's like, okay. And WB is like, no, you're not allowed to save us. I'm like, oh my God. I'm stressed just thinking about it.
Yeah. And imagine that same scenario on meth with Identity Politics within $1 billion.
Yes.
$1 billion transnational, owned by a man who flies penis-shaped rockets. Just saying, you know?
Have we seen studio interference in a positive light? Has there been a film or any type of product that has come out where they said, "Hey, things got weird. We had to interfere, but here's the product"? Because like, I'm even thinking about the Justice League version of Joss Whedon's cut, interference, and then Zack Snyder's cut, which is much, much better. Granted, both films are flawed, very flawed, but the Zack Snyder Envisionment, which didn't have interference, is much better. So do you guys have any examples? Because I can't think of any. Oh, you do? Okay. Go ahead.
Back to the Future.
Yes.
Back to the Future had a wonky ending, and the studio wanted them to reshoot it. Also, Good Will Hunting. Those are the two that I know off the top of my head. Good Will Hunting was originally set to be a completely different movie, but studios wanted to have a more positive outcome, and that's what happened.
So it's not absolute, but I think there is a much longer list in history of times where the studio interfering with the creatives is actually a harmful thing, more often than not. So,
absolutely.
Yeah.
There is one more positive, and it's only noteworthy because it's so timeless.
Oh, Clerks.
The original version of Predator, the studio said wasn't violent enough. It didn't have enough guns.
I love Predator.
So that's why we got so much toxic masculinity and chain guns and all that crazy stuff. It was straight up testosterone, boys. So those are the three that I know about.
Could you imagine an executive today going like, I want more greased up, shirtless men shooting machine guns.
Yes, we need in the jungle. At an alien.
Jungle.
You know what's ironic? Here's one that not many people know about that. I'm reading a list. I Googled it. I'm reading a list. I totally forgot about this. Toy Story.
Wow.
Toy Story was originally written as Buzz Lightyear was arrogant, unlikable. Woody was just mean, like they're hardened toys. And Disney threw an absolute fit and was so unhappy with the first cut of the movie. They threatened to stop production, and they asked Joss Whedon to come in and fix the script. And that's the movie we got.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I forgot about it. I
To
forgot.
infinity and beyond, boys. Wow.
Kidding.
That's
Joss Whedon was a king back in the day, y'all. Okay, look.
Back in the day.
Now, Alasia, I want to ask you a question because I don't think I've heard your answer to it, and it's an impossible question basically to answer, but some people do it. What's your favorite of the trilogy and why? Which of the three is your favorite? I haven't heard what your favorite is.
I think I know which one, but
oh gosh. Yeah, I think you do, Max.
You want the Jeopardy music, or
No, thank you.
Okay.
All right. Well, let me say this. Purple can't be with us for much longer. I want to ask a question. Let me think on it, and because I want to get Purple's input this before she has to depart from us for the evening, and I will give you an answer just as soon as I can. So I have a question for the panel, and Purple, why don't you go first? I want to know, like, I mean, you guys have heard my story about, like, being dyslexic and being a nerd in high school, and that Tolkien is the person who set me on my path to higher education. He's the reason I have a master's. Tried the PhD twice and that didn't work out. That's okay. But Tolkien is why I went on to higher education. He is why I'm the person I am today, and I mean that with my whole heart. Do you guys did Tolkien or Lord of the Rings have any kind of like sustainable impact on your life growing up? Like, did it influence you in any way? Like, anything like that? So Purple, you go first. If you've got a story like that.
It did, absolutely, and not just because obviously a lot of the places that he took inspiration from are kind of around where I live in the Midlands, and he wanted to write a story about England because we didn't really have a mythology of our own, but it ignited my love for fantasy, and one that has continued. I love fantasy films. I love horror that go into the kind of fantasy as well. But it also led me to my absolute favourite author, which is Terry Pratchett, who himself was influenced heavily by Tolkien.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Tugs, you got anything along these lines?
Not really. Just solidified my love of fantasy, which I'm still trying to get my dad to embrace, but it's just he doesn't do it. He's like, is there a version of the Lord of the Rings that sets place in modern times and they use like guns and tanks and stuff? And I'm like, no. And he's like, well, that happened. I'm like, oh, forgot. He just can't handle the fantasy. The story is fine. I'm like, Game of Thrones. I've been fighting with him and Lord of the Rings for years. But anyway, no. I mean, it just really solidified my love of fantasy to begin with, and it's really inspirational. So it's And I didn't realize how close he and C.S. Lewis were until afterwards, much later.
I have a great photo. I should send it to you so that you can show it to him and say you should watch Lord of the Rings now. Is Gandalf? He's holding like a staff and he's looking at it, but somebody did an excellent Photoshop of him holding like an AK. And he's just looking at it like this. I gotta send it to you, and you send it to him and be like, "You need to watch Lord of the Rings." Yeah.
God, I keep trying. He just doesn't. He doesn't do it. I don't know why.
It's funny. Yeah. What about you, Max? Did the Lord of the Rings or Tolkien have any lasting impression on your life?
Yeah, absolutely. I think Tolkien was definitely not only his faith inspired me, but like his faith in a way that was basically saying that because he had gone through war and he had come back and still instilled like a lot of hope into these stories when he was writing them and when he was creating these worlds. And during your faith walk, if you want to say that, like while you're wrestling with these your relationship with God, there are times where things just get rough. You lose someone in the family, or you're going through a darker time, and a lot of times you want to just give up. And Tolkien kind of, even though he had seen death, he had seen loss, he had seen this new world of mechanized things and technology kind of taking over, he still was able to find hope through his faith, through his writings. So I think more so his faith and Catholicism and relationship with Christ inspired me in that way to continue to have hope through these kind of ups and downs, because our relationship with God will never be perfect, and we continue to try and work on ourselves daily. And I think that it's just proven through his writings and that and stuff. And with C.S. Lewis, like you said, Tugs, his relationship with C.S. Lewis.
Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe changed my life as a kid a little bit. So to know that they were friends, to find out I found out way later in life. I was like, oh, that makes a lot of sense, actually.
Yeah.
I love Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. I've gone through like 3 copies of Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and because they just fall apart.
Yeah. CS is funny because he like his analogy, I guess, of basically just Jesus. He's not even trying to hide it at all.
No.
He's just like, yep, here's Jesus. You know what I mean? Like,
It's,
you know,
it's
it's like,
very on the nose, yeah.
yeah, very, very on the nose and
Or
very
like Tolkien's a little bit more
unapologetic.
subtle.
Yeah,
Well,
that like annoyed
Tolkien-
Tolkien to a certain
Yeah.
extent. He's like, can you be a little subtle with it? Like-
Exactly. Like Tolkien is
Yeah.
very like he's quoted with saying like allegory. I hate allegory.
Yeah.
Like he uses
Yeah.
the word hate. Like I do not
Yeah.
like allegory, and yet you have Iluvatar, you know, and you
Yeah.
have Morgoth, which
Mhm.
in my mind I'm going.
yeah.
That sounds a lot.
Come on,
like
man,
God
like,
and the Devil,
yeah.
you
Yeah,
know?
have you read the Silmarillion, dude? Come on.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
So
like it's
you-
literally the fall of the angels. It's quite
Mhm.
blatant.
Yeah.
Exactly. You know what I mean? So there are times where I'm like, maybe just subconsciously he kind of put it in there and didn't
Mhm.
really know. But the allegory that he puts in with his Christian background is much more subtle than like
Yeah.
you guys are saying,
I
C.S.
mean-
Lewis just being like, here's Jesus. You know?
Well, I mean, like,
Hawaiian, weird.
literally,
Yeah.
Prince Caspian. I mean, when they're in the island of dreams, and like all of your dreams become true, and Lucy sees the pelican that turns into the cross. I mean, it's so on the
Oh,
nose.
yeah,
The Prince Caspian, not Prince Caspian, Voyage of the Dawn Treader. Voyage of the Dawn
Yeah.
Treader.
Oh,
That one is like Voyage of the Dawn Treader is like deeply on the nose. I mean, I love it still,
Mhm.
but it's a deep on the nose.
Yeah.
I always liked the silver chair because it was different to all
It
of the other
was.
ones.
Yeah. Silverchair's a lot, and I love Puddleglum because I'm a little bit like Puddleglum, and I loved that he based that off of his gardener. So yeah, I love the Silverchair. That was a very odd. Like that one is the outlier of all the rest of them, but the Horse and the Boy is my favorite one. I will always just adore like the journey they have to take across the desert when they get to Arkadland, you know, having to warn the king and everything. So I love the Horse and his Boy. But yeah, so Johnny, what like did the Lord of the Rings make? I mean, I'm sure you're gonna say it in some way, but what lasting impression did Tolkien have on your life?
I mean, it had for like basically all of my family. It's just like this sacred art. It's our favorite form of. I even said like, you guys know how much I love Nintendo, but somebody was like, Nintendo, Lord of the Rings. One of them's got to go. I said, buy Nintendo. Like Lord of the Rings
wow.
got to stay. I can't.
That's,
We can't not have Lord of the Rings in our lives. It's too important. But for myself personally, and even to this day, I think my favorite thing about it is, as a man, how men are portrayed in Lord of the Rings. And how well-rounded they're portrayed in Lord of the Rings. Because, for example, like I look up to masculine characters for sure, and I go, you know, women want to be with them, and men want to be them. And so when I see, you know, whether it be James Bond, whether it be Master Chief, you see a confidence, you see a man who kicks ass, and I'm like, I want to be that. You know, I want to be that. But the thing is, sometimes like that's it. That's what he does. He kicks ass. You know, and like with Lord of the Rings, like there's a time and place for everything. Like Aragorn is capable of being compassionate. He's capable of being sensitive. He's capable of being forgiving. He's capable of being all these different things, but he is also capable of being strong and courageous and all these things. And it's just like Lord of the Rings just as a whole has so many characters that just portray so many great emotions. It's like, I don't look at characters like, even the thing, it's like it got memed to hell, but just like, the relationship between Frodo and Sam. It's like they love each other as much as you can love a brother. Like, and you know, they make fun of the fact that, oh, you know, it's gay and stuff, the way they look at each other. There's an intimacy there. There's a brotherhood there that some people have, and it doesn't have to be like that. But some people have never had that, and so they just don't understand it, you know? And so like just the way like the characters and all the different elements of what makes a person is portrayed in Lord of the Rings is just so beautifully done. And to me, that inspires me, because I don't want to be that guy who has to feel like I'm having to portray myself as tough all the time because men are tough. It's like, no, like men are complex. It's like sometimes the best thing to do is to be compassionate and to be sensitive to someone who needs that, you know, and when you need to be tough and when the time comes, you will rise up and you will be strong.
Yeah.
You know,
Exactly.
and so Lord of the Rings
Amen,
it just aces that out of the park, man.
They all go through their demons too. Like Aragorn's got his demons that he doesn't want to face and all that, and by the end he does, and he becomes this great king. And it's just, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And
As a
it's,
girl, I appreciated all that.
Same here. That's the next topic.
It's great because Aragorn in the books and Aragorn in the films is slightly different in that, you know, Aragorn in the films is much more he's conflicted. He says, you know, the same blood runs through my veins. He's unsure of himself and he's kind of more timid. Whereas Aragorn in the books is, I am the king of Gondor.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He is very assured of himself. He's very confident.
Yeah.
He's riding into battle. But like you were saying, Johnny, those are two complexities of a male soul of, am I going to be good enough to lead? Am I going to be good enough to protect, to provide? But also the confidence of once you know that you are capable of those things, you can take on any enemy that comes your way, whether it's here or whether it's manifested physically. So yeah, like Aragorn, in my opinion, is one of the most well-written and fleshed out masculine male characters because of that complexity that you just spoke of.
But what about Sam? Like, you know, even Sam
Yeah,
too. It's like same thing where it's like this character is just a servant. That's what he is, like in the most friendly, caring way he can possibly be. He's the best friend that we all should want. You know, he is out for Frodo's best interest at all times. And for the most part, he's a sensitive, caring person. But when the time comes where he has to be strong, where he has to carry Frodo, where he has to, you know, be a protector, he's on it. Immediately he hits that switch. You know, they're dynamic characters that have lots to them. And I just don't think you get that a lot, you know, and a lot of even some of our favorite stories, like a lot of them are just one trick ponies. It's like, I like this character because he's strong and confident. I like this character because he's like, there's a lot going on with each of these characters. And to me, that's inspiring. It's like, that's what I want to be. I want to be that person when I need to be that person. I want to be that type of leader when I need to be that type of leader, you know, and not just like a one trick pony where it's like, oh, I'm just competitive and angry and all this all the time. I have nothing else to me. That inspires me to grow as a person, you know?
Yeah. Which is the absolute opposite of intersectionalism.
Yeah.
Which says you are one label, you will only ever be one label, and that is it. There's no character development. There's no growth. You have no hero's journey of your own. You're just X, Y, Z. And you're either the oppressor or a victim, which is why entertainment sucks now. Anime show.
Purple, my dear, how are you doing?
Yes, I am going to have to say goodnight, unfortunately, guys.
No worries.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me tonight.
Yo, thank you so much for coming on. I would love to do something again like this in the future, but we can do it at an hour that hopefully you can also get sleep, my dear. So hopefully in the future I will grow and expand and we can keep having these conversations because I think we all needed this. Like this is definitely a breath of fresh air that for all of us. I think we all need these conversations where we talk about what we love. So thank you so much for being here, my dear. I really appreciate it.
Well, pleasure's all mine. Thank you, guys.
Bye.
I'm before you leave, I get to see you in
That's right.
3
Yes.
days.
In 3 days.
Yep.
I will get to see all of you guys. Yeah.
I cannot wait. Yeah.
It's gonna be so cool. So that's the reason I'm having to dip out early today.
Yes.
I need to get some sleep and because I have to leave at 3:00 tomorrow morning.
Oh my god.
It's getting real. It's getting real.
I'm so excited.
I am too.
So excited, but thank you you guys are incredible and I cannot wait to give you all a big hug, so thank you.
All right, my
You'll
dear,
need a box.
See you soon.
Take care everyone and thank you to the chat. Bye guys.
Bye. Real quickly, I have a donation. Let me just real quickly. It is for $15 from Lulu. Thank you, my darling. It says much love. So I made new clips and I'm really proud of them. So I'm gonna give you this one.
This task was appointed to you, Frodo of the Shire. If you do not find a way, no one will.
Wow.
How
The
young
moment-
they are.
Wow.
Frodo needed someone who shows up, but Galadriel.
Yep.
There-
I love that scene.
Our
There
Elven
is only one Galadriel,
Yes.
and that's her.
That's her.
That's her.
So,
but she's not strong enough, so she needs to be portrayed differently. Nah, she's She's
Yeah,
awesome.
like
She's a hothead. Like
she's sassy. Yeah, as we just learned, like literally in the Unfinished Tales, we just went over, Mando and I just went over the relationship between Gondor and Rohan. She literally moved 6,000 horses. What would have taken them about a week's distance to cover in a couple hours along the Anduin. She's that powerful. Like,
yeah, but she didn't look like a boy. But she didn't look like a boy. She didn't sit there like she had a package in a unit with a dagger between her legs. How can she be strong?
Oh my God, Max.
Don't do it, Max. I don't want to see the post.
I need to move the camera down.
No, don't do the post. Don't do the post. We're trying to focus on what we love, okay? I don't know these images.
Speaking of, though, that brings up a good point. I don't know if you were going to segue into this, Alasia, but since it's been brought up, Eowyn,
yes,
Arwen, Galadriel, all feminine, yet strong women. You want to talk about what he was talking about?
Yes.
Sure, I wanted to be Arwen. She wore the pretty dresses. She had the hot, masculine, strong man who's going to save her. Also, leave my tiny, short friend alone. Whack. She protects her children. Like that was like her little kid, her little baby. Oh,
I know. I read. I'll just bring. We don't have to read it. I'm just going to bring this up, and I talked about this on a video that I did complaining about the series that shall not be named. But this article from Evie, your favorite magazine.
I love this magazine, and I love this article.
It's a magazine for women, and it's like, thank you, finally. But they talk about Arwen as being the faithful. And what they go through is like literally in the movies, because obviously they expanded her character in the movies, that literally, and out of everyone in Middle Earth, Arwen is the only one who didn't give up hope. Like when she goes back to Rivendell and looks at her father and says, there is still hope. Elrond has been fighting for a good 3,000 years. He is done. He's like, I'm tired. I want to go home. I am over this. His daughter looks him dead in the face and said, there is still hope, when in the moment it felt hopeless. Like Arwen is the only one who is clinging to hope in Middle Earth, and to be that, like to have that level of strength of character and to look in the darkest moment saying, no, there is still hope. I wanted to be her as a little girl. Like, just let me be her. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm so glad you said that. I'm so glad you said that, because I'm going through like every main character in my head. Yeah, Gandalf had moments where he lost hope. Theoden had moments where he lost. Aragorn did. Frodo did. Sam did. I'm just like going off on my head. I'm like, she really is. She's the only one who was just like, we're not giving up on this thing. You know?
My optimism.
And Pippin and Merry too at certain points. Sorry, go ahead. Yeah,
he's the only one. I guess maybe to answer your earlier question. Yeah, Arwen is what my optimism, my positive outlook that I do. I know it drives some of y'all crazy sometimes, but that's this one. That's all her. That's all her. Yep. Her buildings are burning down around her. She's like, it's fine. We got this. There's hope. Don't worry about it. Let's go.
Yeah.
I think. She and one of the great things too about her is that she uplifts and strengthens others around her. She strengthens her father. She strengthens Aragorn. I would argue that without the love of Arwen, Aragorn maybe not fails, but he definitely flounders a bit. Yeah. Without knowing that he has Arwen in his corner with her love. She is extremely strong to keep her faith and to keep her strength, so that these two, men who have lost hope look to her and they go, maybe we should take a look at this again.
Yeah.
So,
And it's like, I'm glad you brought that up now, Max, because also what they go through is like, they do say that Arwen remains faithful to her man while to put it in lay terms, like she remains faithful to her man while he's away at war. Like, I mean, she's like that she does not ever waver in her devotion to Aragorn. And like, and again, not to go into a diatribe of like things that we hate, but again, Lady Gravemaster and myself have talked about this till we're blue in the face. Lady Gravemaster and I know what is going on with the current fantasy genre. And it is a bunch of loose cannon women who have 5 different boy toys who aren't masculine. They're gray characters like Loki. I mean, it's every horrible trope you can think of. And they're all strong women who use men as whipping boys, and they're incapable of being faithful. And my biggest gripe with this is like, when you give your heart to someone, that's it. You're done. You don't, you put on blinders. Like no, she chose Aragorn and he was her man. And she looked her father in the face and said, no, I can't leave him. That's how much I love you, Dad, but I have to stay with him. Like her faithfulness to, and I think that you're right, Max. I think that he knew, because he knew Arwen was remaining faithful to him, that like that gave him the push he needed. It's like young women just don't seem to understand this idea of remaining faithful to one person is so, like, I don't even know, is there a word for it? Like, it's just so honorable, I guess, is the best thing I could put to it.
Well, it's interesting they're putting that dynamic within these books, because what these fantasy books don't show is the aftermath of doing that. And that fantasy hero one day being 40 and played out in a spent piece of used jet trash with no life, no family. And then what do they do? I know that's dark, but it's also something that if you're going to show, be a party girl, there's also another side to that. You know, and the same thing with guys. You know, gigolos, same thing.
Yeah.
I wanted to mention real quick, and not to get too off topic, but Alasia, you still need to answer Johnny's question.
Oh, I do. Thank you.
3 films.
Oh, okay. Well, all right. Hold on. I've got a donation from the Gilkman. Thank you so much, Thomas, for $20. Happy belated birthday.
Thomas.
You're an incredible person, and I hope you have so much fun in Texas. Hail the entire panel. Much love to all. Thank you, Thomas. Oh my gosh. That is amazing.
Thomas, will we see you in Vegas or Texas? Thomas, where are we seeing you next?
Yeah. Let me give you this.
I do not fear death.
I just love Gimli. I love how Gimli's just like, this dude's freaking crazy. You know, it's just like so great. But he's looking at this leader like, oh, we're going in there? Really? You're psycho. Like, it's so good.
An elf and a man go into a cave where a dwarf dare not.
Yeah, so good. So good.
I love that.
So, all right, to get back to Johnny's question that he answered him and asked me, I think I'm gonna have to go with Return of the King, and that is because, isn't that the what? Hold on, what movie did you think I was gonna say?
Oh, I 100% thought you were gonna say Two Towers.
Two Towers.
Yeah,
I thought Two Towers too.
Because I think Arwen has more screen time in Two Towers.
Does. Yeah, she does.
And because of your depiction of the women and children at Helm's Deep. Yeah, I thought you were going Two Towers, but don't let me sway you.
Well,
I want to hear why you say Return of the King.
The thing is, like, I mean, aesthetically, I love the Two Towers. I can watch that all day long. I just adore, and I love in the books. Tolkien, I don't ever want to hear that Tolkien doesn't have a sense of humor. He literally says that Celeborn and Fangorn have been going at it since they met each other. Like, they can't stand each other, and I just think that is hysterical. His humor is so British, and I love it. Anyways, that was a rabbit trail. The reason I say Return of the King is that it shows that the storm must pass. Like, whatever that looks like, the storm must break. You just have to be brave enough to stand on that rocky outcrop and weather it. And just the fact that they come through that storm, and they've all got their stuff to deal with. Frodo has stuff to deal with. I mean, God knows how long it takes him to get back to the Shire. I think it is a solid 3 months. But I mean, it shows that the storm will ebb, and that you can come out the other side. You know, like, they're in the thick of the storm at Helm's Deep. Like, that is when we are at our lowest moment, and we hit a point where it's just like, can we come out of this? And then Éomer shows up. So yeah, I say, like, for the storyline to show how you can come out the other side of such evil and such darkness is really powerful to me. So
well, and that's the thing about, that's the thing about faith in yourself, faith in your friends, faith in whatever higher power you have. It's easy when the sun is shining. It's not so easy when there are 10,000 freaking orcs standing outside of the gate. You know, and I think that's what Tolkien, even though he just didn't like allegory, we as readers, we as viewers of Jackson's film, we can read into it on our own and describe our own value. And I think that's what the Two Towers does, is show you when all hope is lost, you can still get through something. You know, and It's called resilience. Needs to be taught a little bit more.
Yeah.
IMH,
Well, and I think that's
you know?
why they shifted how the chapters lined up in the movies, because you need to end the Two Towers with Gandalf riding down that slope. Because in the books, you end with him leaving to go to Minas Tirith with Pippin. So in the book, we end with the lighting of the beacons. So they never got back to Edoras, obviously. And they've got the lighting of the beacons, and Pippin is asking Gandalf what's going on. He's like, well, Gondor's officially sent out a call for help to Rohan. And so in the books, we're ending like, oh God, we're going another battle. Like, we have more shit to do. Like, really? So the fact that they end the Two Towers with like the sun literally breaking over the crest of that hill and Fangorn Forest destroying the remaining Uruk-hai, that it's a beautiful moment to end on. And I'm glad that they shifted around the chapters, because that would have been kind of heavy to end on if we'd been writing to Minas Tirith and had to wait a whole year for the next movie. So
shout out to Radio in the chat. She said happy birthday, Alasia.
Oh, thank you.
And
Pisha.
hello and hail to
Pisha.
Yeah, the great thing about the Two Towers and just Helm's Deep in general is, I think, Salty, you were saying, allegory is not something that that Tolkien likes, and so that's why whenever we're thinking about these films and these books, you are left to your own devices to come to a conclusion yourself. But the overarching message is hope or resiliency or, whatever it is that you want to be. But that's the beautiful thing about it, because some people say it's relationships. Some people say it's death, like a lot of people think that the Lord of the Rings is a film about death and loss and sorrow. So there are all these different beautiful interpretations of this because Tolkien opened it up for that, because he's that good of a writer, as opposed to writers now that instead of putting subjective allegory that may include a wide variety of different things, it's just, this is my message, over the head with it. You're hitting your audience over the head with it. You can't interpret it as anything else other than this. And that is very detrimental to the story, which I think is why these films in particular work so well.
Well,
absolutely.
Johnny, I don't know what your favorite movie is. So which one would you choose?
It's hard because it's like what do you prefer? The perfect beginning, the perfect middle, or the perfect end?
Oh yeah.
For me personally, I think I'm going to say Return of the King, and I have a couple reasons as well. The moments in it, like I have favorite moments in each of them, but I think Return of the King has like my most favorite moments, is because there's so many moments that are building towards something climactic, and when it happens, it's just the best thing. And like just being a kid, like who's a basketball fan, anybody who played basketball or sports, it's like my fantasy was like, the clock's ticking down, 5-4, game 7 of the NBA finals. You have to make this shot. You win or you lose. You made it. It's like, that's what it feels like, except instead of a sports, it was Lord of the Rings, where it's like the unit speech, where it's like everybody shows up. This is the moment, and the music's just flooding, and it's just all hype. Or like right here, you're right on the freaking cusp of, Mount Doom. Frodo's not going to make it. Can you put him on your back, Sam? Are you going to be able to seize this moment? And he does, and the way the music floods as he does it. And it's just like, God, it's so good. And even as cheesy as it is, like Frodo just hanging off the side and him like leaning down to grab him, that moment too, I'm just like, God, it's all so good. And it was all building up to there. It's like you have the whole movies. Like for me, it's like a sports season, like all this season, all this hard work's been leading up to this moment in the playoffs. And that's what it feels like with, with the movie. It's like all this storytelling, all this world building was leading up to this one moment. Are you going to seize the moment? Boom, he does. It's so good. So I take the perfect end. That's what I want. Yeah.
Nice.
I can't carry it for you, but I can carry you.
It's so perfect. Come on! It's just like, come on!
Elijah Wood was so skinny back in the day because
Yeah. Well, and then after when they get out and like he's like talking about, you know, when Sam's talking about Rosie, I'll get choked up when I talk about that scene, but that scene is just like when they're sitting there and talking about the Shire, and it's just like, oh my gosh. And just like Frodo's like, it's done. And like that like that will never not be an impactful sense of relief in that moment.
Yeah.
I remember seeing it in theaters and the whole theater was like, oh thank God.
Yeah.
Like you could feel the theater be like, he said it's done, and everybody went. The whole theater took a big collective deep breath.
There was another scene with Gandalf, and it is in Return of the King, and that's where they are losing.
Yeah.
And I believe, is it Merry or Pippin who's with him when they're in Pippin? And Pippin essentially loses hope and says, "This is the end." And Gandalf looks over and says, "The end? No, this is just but another step in the journey." And he talks about what the experience of death is and going beyond, and there's a far shore and, you know, bright light and all this stuff. And it's like, I don't know how many other people see that scene. I don't know. We look at the other ones, but for me, that particular one, it holds a lot of power. And you don't see anything like that, especially within fantasy, let alone any current day entertainment. But to have that faith that there is more than now, and that we can transcend this, and it won't be the same, it will be something different. But to have that faith put in a narrative like that is incredibly powerful.
So
really
good.
is.
That's the part that frustrates me whenever people like compare Lord of the Rings to Game of Thrones, because they're so like fundamentally different and just like stylistically and undertones. And which I also think is a cool thing. I think it's good to have different styles in writing and that sort of thing. But I think about the contrast between that scene and Tolkien as a man of faith, as a man who believed in God and that sort of thing, and believed that there is life after death, seeing that, you know, through what Gandalf was saying, and you see it, the white shores, you know, and as he's describing it to him, and it's just beautiful. And then you think of after Jon Snow comes back, you know, when the Lord of Light brings him back, and what did you see? And he was like, there's nothing. There's darkness, you know, as he saw nothing.
Lied to,
you know, it's a more nihilistic kind of, there's always someone who's going to stab you in the back. There's always, you know, and Lord of the Rings, on the other hand, is no matter how bad things get, there's always hope. You know, it's like there's such a different like undertones and message there. And I love that. And so it's like, that's really just to me why I prefer Lord of the Rings, is I want that hope, you know, I want that belief, because that gives me purpose, you know. Otherwise it's, what's the point? You know, it's like you want a reason to persevere, you want a reason to push forward, and Lord of the Rings gives that. It's awesome.
It's great, man. I love that. I didn't get that far in Game of Thrones, and to hear that, you know, it automatically, after season 1 or season 2 or something, I was like, yeah, I don't think this is for me. And I can see why. It just never really grabbed a hold. But that the delineation between the two, like you just mentioned, is beautiful in a way that there are things for everyone, but it just makes me like almost love Lord of the Rings more, because I'm like, I know I chose the right, you know, legendary
one for you.
I chose the right one, because I wouldn't be able to be invested into the weight of the characters that just kind of don't have that same care, or you know, like, because the reason why that scene works, like you were saying, of I think you and Salty were both talking about Gandalf saying, you know, death is but another path, one that we all must take, is because before then, you know, hours before, in the middle of the night, where they bring out Grond and they break through the walls, and Gandalf is saying, no matter what comes through that gate, you're going to hold your ground. And like 4 armored cave trolls come through the gate. And I was sitting there just like, they're dead. They're all dead. I think
I'm like,
that's the
run!
Insert the Ryan meme. Oh my god! Oh my god! Run!
That's literally
Yeah.
what
I just want
everyone
that
was thinking at
photoshopped
that
over
moment.
that scene now. Oh
Yeah.
my god!
You want to make one more meme, Johnny?
We need more. I love memes. They're not your favorite thing,
Memes,
Alasia,
yeah.
but I love them.
Well, and
No,
like
memes
growing
are
up,
excellent. And
no, they are. I love memes.
I was just gonna say real quick that because of the weight of that scene, because of Ryan screaming, "Oh my god! Oh my god!" the scene of Gandalf mentoring Pippin in that moment makes it all the better. Like without the weight and the frightening realization of death at your door, makes that scene much more real and impactful and all that stuff. So sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but go ahead, Alasia. I didn't.
No, you're fine. I was just gonna say, like, for me, and I'm sure this will shock all of you. I watched the first episode of Game of Thrones, and I was like, nope, not putting this filth in my head. Like, it's just not happening. And I will hold to this day that I don't care if Martin ever finishes whatever the book is that he needs to finish. He will never touch Tolkien, because Tolkien wrote one of the best fantasy series of all time, or the best fantasy series of all time, and didn't put one bedroom scene in it. So
Yeah, the thing about because I didn't watch the Game of Thrones on HBO, I only read the books, and I reached a place with the books where I literally was so angry that when I finished the last one that was out, I was like, I'm not reading this anymore, because there was no one left that I cared about at all. Now, I'd seen a lot of horrifying ways that people died or were tortured to death or otherwise harmed, but I was like, and I should keep reading this. Why? And it is a very different tone than Tolkien, and I know he was trying to subvert expectations. And Alasia, I don't necessarily see it the same way you do, but I reached this certain point of, you got to give me somebody I'm rooting for, and there's nobody left. I don't care about whoever you've left on the board. I'm just done.
Well, Lord of the Rings, to a certain extent, was predictable, but it was a good kind of predictable, and it's a certain, and that's kind of lost in a lot of writing today. There's too much subverting expectations. So it's like, I got a couple examples. One is like The Walking Dead. Anytime I watch it, I used to love that show, but if you watch the first couple of seasons, it's just a bunch of dead people talking to each other because nobody's around anymore. So it's like, it's hard to feel attached to anyone. And now with like other stories, new stories that are coming out, there's so much subverting expectations. It'd be like in Lord of the Rings, if they get to Mount Doom, and originally the ring was given to Frodo and Sam was his companion, but the ones destroying it at the end are Faramir and Pippin.
Yeah.
It would just be like, would that be a surprise? Yeah. Would that subvert my expectations? Yeah. Would it feel cheap and not feel like a good story? Yes, as well. And there's too much of that going on right now, where it's like, sometimes it's okay to set it up as it will be Frodo and it will be Sam. And you know what? It ends up being Frodo and Sam. And it was a great story,
You bring up a really good point. I remember watching the old TNG Star Trek episodes every week. You know that regardless of whatever started in the first 5 minutes of the show, they were going to wrap it up by the 45-minute mark, 50-minute mark, because they had to have another episode. And why did anybody watch episodic television, especially with Star Trek, if we knew they were going to win anyway? And for me, it was the good story. We already know that the alphabet is A to Z. It's how they jumbled the letters up in between, whether it was O'Brien or whether, we were looking at Dr. Crusher this week. We knew everybody was going to be okay in the end, but yet we watched and we love these shows. And that's why I look at something like Lord of the Rings, and it's like, I didn't need a damn thing subverted. What I needed was the portrayal of what was already written done very well. And that's what we got. And that is entirely missing from virtually every damn thing out there right now.
Yeah.
Really.
I think that's a part of the problem where, and putting the bad writing and all the aside, is people were expecting the writers to subvert our expectations and make Daenerys not evil. And they went ahead and made her evil, and she turned into the Mad Queen at the end, and people were so mad. But forget the bad writing aside, put that part of it aside. I have heard so many people, I'm like, what show have you been watching? What books did you read? Because this was always the plan, and we've got so many expectations. Oh, just kidding, gotcha. That they were completely expecting the opposite to happen. When it didn't, they got mad. And also, Alasia, fun fact, the show has way more sex scenes than the books do.
See, I've tried the
Exactly.
books, and
Yeah.
like because being a writer, it's like you talk about the hook. I have not gotten past chapter 2, and I have tried several times, and there's nothing about that hook that I'm just like, why should I read this? It didn't.
Off with zombies. How do you not like that?
I'm not a zombie. I've read 2 zombie books, and my sister is much more into the zombie genre than I am, but I just that hook did not get me, and I'm all for stylistically, I'm all for starting in the middle of a story. I'm all for like just landing the reader down in and like boom, you've got to figure this stuff out. I'm all for that. I like that trope. But hi, darling. Nice to see you. Thank you for popping in. I don't know. I can't get past chapter 2. I don't know why.
Well, try so instead the next time you're interested in picking it up, try picking it up on chapter 3 or 4 and just pretend that's the beginning of the book. You know what I mean? I'll find the chapter for you. I can't remember it might be 4 or 5 where they actually get into the Starks and stuff. Start there instead. Maybe that'll pique your interest.
Well, here's an interesting thing is like I think when the Game of Thrones show starts, there's so much like double speak, there's so much like betrayal and sneakiness and rumors and brother and sister screwing each other and crap. It's like, who am I rooting for? Yeah. It gets back to what Salty was saying, where you're like, who am I rooting for? And I think it's an interesting contrast between Lord of the Rings, and it kind of begs the question, in Lord of the Rings, who are you not rooting for?
Exactly.
Like, who in the Fellowship are you not rooting for? Because when you break it down character by character, you love all of these characters. I mean, I think Eowyn kind of annoyed me at sometimes because she's just so googly-eyed over Aragorn. But Aragorn also annoyed me because he'd always like lead her on too. So I'm like, would you stop that? But like, other than that, I'm like, I'm rooting for the whole team the whole time. Yeah. Like everyone in the Fellowship, I love all these characters and I want them to succeed. When in most TV shows and most movies, there's like half of the characters that you're like, I can't stand this character. I want to see this character face plant.
Game of Thrones focuses in like Tolkien is very black and white, good versus evil. George Lucas is the same way, minus Anakin. He's our gray guy,
and Boromir.
George R. Martin is very gray. There are characters that you despise, and you're like, this person is a terrible human being. He needs to go die. And then a book and a half later, you're like, oh snap, maybe I like this guy. So it's and it's kind of I think Game of Thrones for me, I don't like one better than the other because I haven't read the Lord of the Rings book, so I can't tell you that way. Movie-wise, Lord of the Rings is a better overall story, but I like Game of Thrones for me personally because it is more realistic in that way. You have people who've done really bad things that are now good and vice versa. And so people are constantly changing, and that's what happens in his books too. You got these characters like Jon Snow is so black and white when you first meet him, and he doesn't vary from his good character. He is the one consistent like good character all the way through, but he does some things that you're like, that's questionable, but I also get it and all this stuff. So whereas Tolkien's very black and white, George R. R. Martin goes into that gray area all the time, and I think that that makes it a little bit more exciting for a lot of especially modern readers to read, is because it's like, oh, I get it because I would do that too. Is it wrong? Yeah, but it's for the greater this or this and whatever. And so it's more of a little bit more realistic.
Too much gray for me. I get what you're saying. Totally understand what you're saying, but too much gray for me. It's why I prefer Lord of the Rings is the fact that there are characters that we're pulling for, and there are people who are blatantly heroes. I'm not believing that Aragorn is without sin. I'm not believing that Aragorn has never like done anything selfish or anything like that, but it's clear that like, this is a guy I get behind. This is a guy that I would love to lead me into war. It's like, and so, yeah, I definitely prefer
There's a couple of characters in the game. Jon Snow, Ned Stark.
Which is why I got so mad when they ruined Jon Snow in the end, but
yeah. Well, I don't know if he ever finishes the books. I don't know where they're going. I mean, we could talk
in the show
all day, but I don't know where they're going to go with. I don't know where he's going to go with him in the books. I imagine he probably ends up at the same place. There's just like a bazillion pages of detail that need to go in between here and there. Because that's what left him off is his deaths in the books. So
I think
that's true of every character, the way the comments dissecting it. Sorry, but from that perspective and everybody's temptations and everybody's struggles and self-conscious, there's no gray in that aspect. Well, he said there's nothing gray about Boromir. I get it. The man's tempted by the ring and everything, but there is that part where you think he's a bad guy, and by the end of it, you're like, no, Boromir, I do like you. He was
never really a bad guy. He just was. He could see, and even in his temptation, it was like this ring. I could what I could do for Gondor. He was
susceptible.
With
he was susceptible to the ring.
His desire to help Gondor was so great.
Yeah, it was more human. It wasn't
Yeah.
necessarily
Yeah.
gray, just more human characteristics.
And his sacrifice at the end, protecting the hobbits and allowing Frodo to get away, atones him, in my opinion. So,
Yeah,
I'm
absolutely.
sorry, Max.
Absolutely.
No, it's a beautiful. Oddly enough, it's a beautiful death. How he dies in battle
It
is
is.
very
Yeah, it
honorable,
really is.
noble, and it's a
cried
good
every
death
time.
where his brother, blood brother, I guess you would say, with their line. Aragorn is there to send him off, and that's so Salty. I think you're totally justified in saying it was a good end. I think with the thing with the characters in books that we either need a protagonist that we can root for, or we need someone like a Frodo or Sam where we can see through their eyes into the story. Because if I can maybe relate to a character and see the world around me through the character, I can be more invested. Whereas if I'm looking outward and I'm looking into the characters and I'm seeing the protagonist and going, oh, I can root for that guy. I'm with him. I want him to lead me. That's also another way of experiencing the story. But if you have neither of those, how are you enveloped in the story at that point? You're just watching people kill each other and people backstab each other and political intrigue. And you're just watching this mass of just human horrible nature, and you go, I don't want to read this or watch this. I want to go back to the people that I know, that I want to be led by, or people that I can see myself through. So that's what I would say as far as the Game of Thrones, Lord of the Rings dynamic.
Yeah, it's definitely up to your preference. If you're looking for more of that, I need these, and it also depends on too, like for a lot of, especially book readers, you pick up books that mirror where you're at in life. So if you're out and you stumble upon Lord of the Rings, that's the story you need. You need this uplifting. I can get through this. I can do this. I can do that. If you're a little bit more comfortable with yourself, or you're doing pretty good, or you're just mad at the world, maybe Game of Thrones is more your speed, because you need to go, yeah, that's right, I'm vindicated, but there are still good people in the world. And then you get that reminder, like, oh, there are good people. Because there are really good people in the Game of Thrones books. You got to get there. You'll get there. I promise. If you read them, I promise you there's good people. I promise. But yeah, it's like this. Yeah, there's this violent, backstabbing world that we all live in, that we could share stories all day, all of us, I'm sure. But that is where the Game of Thrones comes from, where you rage at the world and you're like, oh, but wait a minute. Here's my reminder that there are good people in it. When you're completely down and out, and that was what Lord of the Rings, the movies were, as a kid, when they came out, okay, this is uplifting. This is great. I can get through this craziness that's going on in my personal life and my family and all that stuff. This is cool. Like, that brings you up and out of it. Whereas Game of Thrones is like rage.
Well, it's good to get inspiration. I think it's good to get something that asks us to be something more and to be something better. We're getting enough. For me, I'm getting enough of that freaking gray, complex. Are they good guys? Are they bad guys? Like, there's so much of that right now. It's like, give me a freaking hero's journey. If they can be a better person than me, and I can still relate to that, I can be inspired to be like that.
That's what we've done with our heroes. Minus Maverick. Just throwing that out there.
Sorry. Hail the Lore says, I don't mind going for the bad guy in the story if they are well written. And we talk a lot about heroes. But what about villains? What makes a well-written villain? Do we need to know why they're a villain? Do we need to feel sorry for them as they're a villain? Does that make a good villain?
No,
I think it depends. I think in Lord of the Rings, like, we don't get much into the mind of, like, we know his motives, but we don't really get into the intricacies of the mind of Tolkien. Sauron. Sorry, Tolkien. Compared to Sauron, but like Sauron, why he does what he does, and I think it works. I think it works for Lord of the Rings, but in a different context, it's like, like Breaking Bad. Heisenberg is the villain in his own story, and you're following his perspective, and so you can't just have a cold, heartless, not complex villain, because you're following his POV, and we can't relate to that, and it doesn't make an interesting story if we don't have that. So I don't think it's a black and white thing where it's one way or another. It kind of just depends on the story and that you're really trying to tell. But I think there's a lot of that going on right now, where it's like, we got to humanize every villain, and it's like, nah, you really don't. Every once in a while, you just got a Sauron, and he's a bad guy, and really just flesh out your heroes, and y'all got to take him down. Like, and it works.
Once Upon a Time, as much as I love the show Once Upon a Time, but they started that crap. We're pretty sure they were the catalyst, where we're going to have a sympathetic background for the evil queen who tried to kill a 14-year-old girl, Snow White. We're going to have a sympathetic background. The only one they couldn't come up with a sympathetic, and mad props to them for sticking to it, because I thought for sure was Cruella de Vil. They made her actually born evil. She's born bad, born evil. There's no saving her. Well done on that. But everybody else, literally everyone, has a sympathetic backstory. You go put on the Ursula episode. Oh, we feel so bad for her because her daughter was killed by pirates. What?
Yeah.
No. I hate that. I haven't watched Maleficent because of it. I can't. Stop it.
Well, because look at the two. What are the two biggest fantasy sci-fi franchises that get compared all the time? Lord of the Rings and Star Wars. What do you think is better? What's your favorite? And when it comes to the two villains, they're different. You got Sauron and you got Darth Vader, because Darth Vader is that sympathetic one. Darth Vader was a good guy at one point, and by the end of it, he does receive some level of redemption. And so it's I think it really just depends. I think both could work.
You know what's funny is, Alasia, I'd like to get your take on this as well. But between Sauron, if it's a battle between Sauron and Morgoth, I think Morgoth is evil incarnate. He is literal darkness and evil and sin.
Sauron's a joke compared to
he's a weasel.
Yeah. He's a little clown boy.
He's looked at the Valar and he's like, no, I'm good. I'm gonna stay here. And then he literally, the whole reason he started building made Mordor is he was telling his minions, we're gonna go break Morgoth out. That's the whole reason. He just had to poke our Farazan, and he's like, you should go to Valar. You should go get immortality. He just had to poke him, but his whole point was to get Morgoth released. That was the whole point of him tipping Numenor over the edge. He is a spineless weasel. Morgoth, no, there's no comparison. The Morgoth is pure evil.
Yeah, and I for me, I actually like that. I would love to see Morgoth in an adaptation, because it would be horrifying. It would be
Can you imagine him
so
and
cool.
Ungoliant destroying the trees
and
Ungoliant
swallowing?
So
cool. It would be creepy and horrifying, and it would be really cool.
Let's just give it to Payne and McKay. They're going to do, look at what they've done in the Rings of Power. They're perfect. Just give it to them, just like they were given the Rings of Power.
Thank you, Roman. Thank you so much for being here. I so appreciate all your help. Real quickly, I have a $50 donation from Daniel. I don't know who this Daniel is. I don't know if this is Daniel from
the
church
chat right now too.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's the Daniel that's in chat right here. He's a really good guy.
Thank you so much, Daniel. Thank you. He says, happy birthday, Alasia. I gave up on Game of Thrones in book 3 as it was clear that Martin was telling the opposite of a traditional hopeful story. I don't need fantasy to tell me what kind of lessons that reality can teach me. Keep being a badass. Thank you so much, Daniel. For that, I'm going to give you this.
You should have stayed dead.
I will own that sword one day. That is the one sword that I want.
Oh, we're gonna look for it at Dallas Con.
Elrond was such a stud. Freaking Elrond.
I'm telling you, there'll be booths there that'll have replicas. Well, we're gonna find you one.
I'm gonna go in bankruptcy just to get my sword. If I had that sword, I love my side sword figures, but it would be right there.
Hail to you, Daniel. Thank you again for that. You're an awesome dude, Daniel.
I agree with you, Daniel. And that's the thing. It's and people have heard me say this, is that, I'm a historian of the troubles of Northern Ireland. There have been moments where I've had nightmares of I've had to watch the footage of Bloody Sunday and watching all those people get mowed down. It's historians can pick up, I can't remember what it's called. It's like secondhand PTSD almost, depending on what you study. And I did for a while. I had like this, it's not PTSD, but for lack of a better phrase, it's like this secondhand anxiety you get because of what you study. The last
it's transference. It's emotional transference.
Yeah. And so I watching kids get shot is just, it's hard. So, sorry, that was a weird diatribe, but what I'm getting at is that when I read, the reason I have 9 bookshelves is because the last thing I want to read about is either more depression or anything that has to do with this world. I want the secondary world. And so I agree with you, Daniel. I need hope because I've dedicated my life. Well, now God's like, I've got other plans for you. And I'm like, okay. It was a very hard and heavy topic that not a whole lot of women do. And I think there's good reason for that. So anyway, sorry, that was weird. But thank you, Daniel, so much. I can't tell you how much I appreciate that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So I have another question. Sorry, go ahead, Max.
Oh, I was going to say, do you want to mention your question? Or because I was just going to say something to our previous topic.
No, go ahead.
If that's all right.
Yeah.
Related to comic book wise, like in the comic book world, the biggest perpetrator of this whole thing of like grayness that we're talking about, in my opinion, has been The Watchmen, which came out in the 80s, I want to say. I'm not a Watchmen connoisseur. It's not my favorite graphic novel. It's dark. It's depressing. It is what if it was the very first iteration, really, that picked up a lot of speed and a lot of money, where people, because it was before then, it was just hopeful heroes, But then Watchmen took it and it said, what if these heroes were just people? They were broken. They were addicts. They were, betrayers. What would that look like in a world now? And then from then on, comic books just took it and ran with it. And they said, what if we do this with everyone for everything? Let's subvert them. Let's make them depressed. Let's give them PTSD. Let's, and now we're seeing that, because we saw that in comics and we still see it every now and then. But now we're seeing it in the films, and for someone who has witnessed my military friends, myself, literally have to go through therapy from different military experiences on deployment and stuff. I don't want to go see Thor with PTSD. I've already seen it in my real life. I don't need to see him now dealing with it because I've had to deal with that. So this whole like degrading of the character to be like, oh, well, we really want to just kind of subvert him and see what it like. No. You can give him a low point while also making him the hero at the end of the story. You don't need to completely collapse his character. So that was kind of what I was going to say. And I, because it also brought up your topic of watching these videos and kind of getting that PTSD of what that looks like, and Tolkien's envisionment of war and everything. But it's difficult to see in real world and then also have it be in your fantasy. But it started, like I said, with that kind of comic book where then everyone just kind of blew up and was like, yeah, let's do this for everything. And it was like,
the irony of that, and I think people forgot this along the way. I don't know why. But Watchmen was written by a man who hates superheroes. Literally, I'm dead serious. He does not like them. He thinks they're hokey. He thinks they're whatever it is that he's used as Alan Moore. He wrote that specifically to stick it to DC. Well, it wasn't DC Comics back then. I don't remember who the comic was, but to stick it to these superheroes, the Justice League, and all the stuff that we're dominating. And he was like, "Okay, I'll write you a comic book. This is what it's going to be like." And they're like, "All right, have at it. Why not? Let's see what happens." And Max is right. It spiraled, and now we have The Boys, which I enjoy. The Boys, but it's the same kind of. They mostly kind of make fun of it, but they're that kind of same thing too. But Watchmen was written by a man who hates superheroes. Frank Miller also hates superheroes. So we're adapting these these comic books, these graphic novels into movies from writers that wrote these stories because they don't like the hero. That was the whole point of The Dark Knight Returns. He doesn't like Batman. He doesn't like Superman. We're going to make them mean. We're going to make them nasty. We're going to make them brutal and killing because I don't like them. And Frank Miller is, that's a whole nother rant. But, now we've turned our heroes into these, there is literally no good anymore. It's always the line you got to walk. But it's like,
well, I was going to put it this way. So hypothetically, let's say I have a son. I have a 5-year-old son. I'm trying to introduce him to stuff I love. Lord willing, I have children one day, that will happen. So let's say it's going to happen. Do I want to show him all the stuff where it's going to be like everything is this complex character where it's like,
there you go.
Oh, why did they do what they do? You know, yeah, he freaking shot up a bunch of people, but did we ask what his childhood experience was? Did we ask about what justifications they had for doing the evil things they did? Did we ask about how they were raised, why they were influenced? Or am I going to want my child to see there's good and there's evil? And are you going to be good? And are you going to rise up? And are you going to be the kind of person who conquers evil? And it's like, I like those complex stories that require a little bit more of a mature audience to understand, yeah, there are some intricacies and sometimes there are some gray areas where good people are going to make different decisions, you know, but we're getting so much of that where it gets to the point where it's like pop culture does influence culture. And there's so much, and I'm not saying ban it. I'm not saying that, you know, I think people should be allowed to put that stuff out there, but as a consumer, as a customer, I think it's important to think about what you're taking in, what you're inspired by. If you're constantly associating yourself with characters that are like freaking Heisenberg, maybe you need to look inwardly and go, are you justifying the evil things that you do in your life? Because
pretty much
there's so much of that going on right now. You know?
And Charlie Stevenson, I think, hits the nail on the head. And he says the majority of the population lives such sheltered lives that they seek adversity in their entertainment, be it in films, games, or comics.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's a sad life if you actually don't have to overcome real problems and adversity, or if you take substances so you don't feel what it's like to live in that life. I'm just going to say that.
Yeah.
It's a great.
Go ahead, next.
I was just going to echo the sentiments of Johnny. I think it's a great portrayal of your character, of everyone on this panel, their character. You know, it's like, what do you want to give your child? Yes, those stories are well made, they're well written, and they do challenge you, and they are necessary. They're necessary to challenge your thought process, to give you a different perspective of things. But as a child, and as a mode of and a method of escapism, you just want a good versus evil story, and in the end, good wins. You know, it's super simple. And these are human characteristics and human qualities that people can practice, like sacrifice and humility and goodness and compassion and like patience, like just common decency traits that can be written in good stories, that don't have to be too heavy-handed or don't have to be too complex or too, you know, very meticulous and like very what's the word I'm looking, too like on their high horse. You know what I mean? So yeah, I agree with you guys. I think we need those stories, the ones about hope and everything, more now than we ever have. So.
Yeah. Well, and this is going to shift gears a little bit, but Johnny, you kind of segued into something that I wanted to talk about. Because like I said, I had watched Lord of the Rings for a solid year every single weekend. And then I kind of stopped just because I found other books and other things to love. And so I drifted away from it a little bit, but then this year and last year coming back to it and finding my love of it again. And, you know, going through now all 13 histories of what Tolkien left behind. I found that my perception of the importance of the characters has changed. And one thing, and none of you laugh at me, but one thing I have found myself now as you know, now a 32-year-old woman is, you know, in high school, obviously I was head over heels for Legolas, but then now coming back to it, you know, at 32, I'm like, oh no, I want Aragorn or Aramir. I'm the one. They
all end up figuring out.
I was never a Legolas fan.
Were you not? It's funny.
No.
But like it's like, you know, as a young woman now, it's like, oh no, that I want the leader. I want the one who will stand up and you know and defend his own and all this stuff. And like coming back to Arwen, she means even more to me now than she ever has. So I don't know, did your guys' perspective of Lord of the Rings change over time as you grew with it?
Yes, and the funny thing is, in the exact same way.
Really?
When I was a teenager and I was watching it, Legolas was my favorite character. Part of it's archery and just the whole thing. He's like a sniper with that bow. Such a cool character. I love the elf thing. I think the elf and kind of the connection in some way between like freaking Zelda lore and that sort of thing. I'm like, he's like Link. I love him. And so there's part of that. But as I grow up, now as I become a man and I was understanding accepting responsibility and the idea of like the metaphor of like leading a kingdom and being responsible for more and everything. And it's Aragorn, man. it's like Aragorn's the man I want to be like, that's what I want to, emulate. And so, yeah, totally. I get what you're saying, where it's like your aspirations and the characters you identify with or just appreciate, it evolves over time. Yeah. In that exact same way.
That's funny.
I think that's part of just being a man, being a young man. And, apparently I'm near death, according to you all.
What? I've never said anything like that.
Sorry.
Alicia's near death right now.
Yeah, it's Alicia. But it's interesting, the archetypes that appeal to you. In Aragorn still appeals to me as well. But I also am starting to really acknowledge Elrond to a certain degree too. I mean, I'm like 90% Aragorn, but I also see Elrond's point to a certain degree, because when you've seen enough happen, you kind of get to this place of, oh God, again, and it's like,
he's like,
here we go again.
A long time. Men have failed us plenty of those times.
And it's hard. Like, he seems like a guy who has, like, I love the way his character is portrayed, because he is portrayed in a way like he's lived a long time.
Yes.
Like, he has a hard time hanging on to hope. And sometimes it takes his daughter or someone to, like, try to give him hope. And even then, he's not quick to receive it. Because he's stubborn and he's seen a lot, but it takes that encouragement to be like, hey, don't give up completely. Don't become so cynical that you can't have hope anymore because of everything you've been through. Like, it doesn't have to always be that way.
Well,
let me just call out the Untamed Life. All stream long, she has been dropping links to everyone, not only here, but Zach's as well. Untamed Life. Thank you.
Yeah, I owe you a thank you after this stream, McGirl. Thank you. We couldn't do this without you. So yeah, you will be getting a thank you for everything you've done for me tonight.
She's like the Clint Eastwood of links. Like, she's able to pull that freaking quick draw. Like,
Annie Oakley. She's the Annie Oakley.
She's our Annie Oakley. What were you gonna say, Max?
So I was just going to say that, even when Elrond gives, Aragorn the blade that was broken in the third film, he almost gives it to him as like, he's almost, I don't know, the tone that, and this could only be done by Hugo Weaving. I think Hugo Weaving is the only person who can play Elrond.
The only man.
Yes. And he does it in this way that's like, prove me wrong. He's almost like he's not upset, but he's angry, because he's like, I didn't want to do this, but your love, Arwen, gave me this hope, gave me this idea to reforge this blade to give to you. Prove me right. I'm sorry, I said prove me wrong before. Prove me right in that you can fulfill your destiny, that you can lead these armies to victory, and that you can, mend these broken relationships between men and elves and dwarves and, all this stuff. He's almost kind of like because he says something like, the line is, become the man you were born to be, or something like that.
Yeah.
But it's very forceful. He's not Aragorn, I've come to you to. No, he's like, do this now. Get your ass out of your tent.
Crap.
Exactly.
Put aside the ranger. Become the man you were born to be.
Yep.
There it is.
There's no question. It's the get going. The world.
Which to be honest, I feel like it makes it a little bit better and a little bit more, I guess, relatable. The fact that he's Arwen's father. Like, this is a father who loves his daughter and going, listen, you're gonna be the man for my woman. You better be a freaking man. And I love that. I think that is super cool.
That was all. I'm giving you permission, but you better not break her heart. That was that speech.
Yes, exactly. Yep. And I mean,
what are your intentions with my daughter? Everyone's had that speech before too. But sorry, go ahead, Alicia.
Well, and just in the appendices, I mean, like, and the man has the gift of foresight. He can see what's coming. I mean, in the appendices, he's like, you are going to deal me the greatest blow that Middle Earth has seen of the Third Age. He said something to that effect, and he literally says, you will break my heart, and you literally right now in this moment, because you have fallen in love with Arwen, you're breaking my heart. And he's still like, he still holds to his word. But yeah, you're right. I mean, he does he was also like in from a little more like, I don't know, reading between the lines. I feel like he's also just a really tired dad at that point. He's like, I have raised you since you were knee high. Get your act together. He's like a really tired dad at that moment.
But that's the archetype. Those are the male archetypes, where you have somebody like Aragorn. The next step would be someone like Elrond, and then you have somebody like, Gandalf. We can start arguing about all that, but the archetypes that are portrayed, Elrond is the next evolutionary step of someone who is like Aragorn, and that's what he would be later in life. So yeah.
No, absolutely. Tugs, has your like perception of Lord of the Rings changed as you've aged and gotten a little wiser?
I've gotten wiser.
Yes, you have.
No, I was the only one. And this is a true story. The only one back in the day that was lusting after Aragorn and Éomer while everybody else was drooling over Orlando Bloom. I never found Orlando Bloom attractive at all, period, end of story, until Pirates in the first one. I was kind of like, oh, he looks good, rugged. I can see that.
I can vibe with this.
Been in love with Orlando Bloom since day he was born practically. Looked at me and was like, well, that makes sense because your favorite's Aragorn, who's got all this hair everywhere. She's like, now you find him attractive. I said, look, he's wig and the blonde hair, and then what is that face he makes? I can't with Legolas. I just cannot. He drives me bonkers. But no, Aragorn, that he pushes that door open. I was like,
that's the scene that gets every woman. I'm telling you, that scene is just like, ooh.
And his hair's in his face.
I'm telling you, every freaking lady at that part.
If my future husband doesn't open doors like that at least once, I know the scene that actually got me. I was enamored with Aragorn right away when we very first meet him in the very first movie when he's sitting and you just see the pipe and is covered and you don't see anything except like this area. I was like, I want one of those. I don't know who that is, but I want one. And I was like 10, 12. I was like 12 or 13 when the movie came out. I'm like, can I please? Thanks.
And that's the thing. The jump between the Hobbit, actually it wasn't Rankin Bass, it was the Bakshi Lord of the Rings films, and their depiction of Aragorn, that was the first and last version of Aragorn we got on screen until Peter Jackson in 2001. So you're looking at about 20 years. And then you have, the version of Aragorn in the animated is a lot gruffer, a lot less likable. A lot, he seems older, gruffer, more grizzled, gaunt, not very likable in a lot of ways. And then we get the Aragorn with Viggo Mortensen in the Peter Jackson movies. It's a completely different characterization, and I love it. I really do. It's hard to go back and watch the Bakshi Fellowship of the Ring movies just for that reason, because of how Aragorn is portrayed.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's interesting that we've all kind of leaned towards this idea that over time we all kind of start to resonate with these heroic characters like Elrond and Aragorn, because for me as a kid, I watched Lord of the Rings and I was all about the heroism, right? But I thought that heroism was just slaying Uruk-hai or being strong and being brave and all this stuff. But as you guys have so brilliantly displayed and spoken about on the stream tonight, is like the reason why those men were able to have these incredible feats of strength and courage and nobility is because of their moments of weakness when they needed to have them, or their moments of compassion when they needed to have them. That was the reason why Boromir's downfall was what it was, because he gave into those emotions and wasn't able to control them. Whereas the men that are more heroic were able to control their emotions and have more of an understanding of what it looks like to control those. And that is what a heroic masculine man is able to do, and not let those emotions get a hold of them. So, though I always had an affinity towards Aragorn, my reasons for why changed over time, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, and going back to this is deviating a little bit, but like, looking at it now, I don't need Tolkien or Jackson to tell me Éomer is a good heroic man. I just believe him automatically to be. I know I love Aramir too. Like based off like my Enneagram and my personality traits, and I'm like, so Aramir and Faramir would either of those men would suit me quite well. I need someone who's a little more mellow than me because I'm a fiery, passionate person. But
INFJ.
I know that.
INFJ.
Yes,
I
believe it or
just
not,
had
I
a
know.
thought. Circle back to me when you're done. I just
Okay.
had a thought.
But it's just
I said it.
what I love about these men, especially because we don't have many women in this story, and frankly, I don't need them. I don't need a story chock full of women in order to feel seen. But like we have these men, and you don't question that they're good. Like you just automatically, because of their actions and because of their speech, you just know that they've lived as honorably as possible. And I think that's an incredible. I don't know if we as the reader are just trusting Tolkien with telling this story, or if it's how they were portrayed on screen. I don't know what it is, but we never question that someone like Éomer is just a good man and that he is doing what he can do for his country to keep it safe here on the brink of disaster. You know what I mean?
It's trusting the reader. It's trusting the reader, and it's rewarding the intelligent reader, which is something that modern entertainment doesn't seem to want to do. As a matter of fact, they want to disabuse us of what it is that we recognize as good and evil in stories. And I think that's why these books are so timeless, and why we're sitting here on a panel going on almost 3 hours, and we could go even 3 more hours talking about why we love these characters. Let me just do this real quick for Daniel. Those of you who have been on these chats before, Rosa Gamgee likes to write limericks, not only here, but in a variety of shows. Daniel has actually written her a limerick. I think this is the first time this happened. And it is, I once knew a hobbit short of stature. Her prose was quite the attractor. With words she could paint a scene that's quite quaint, and never will I be her detractor.
Wow.
Well done, Daniel.
Well
done.
done.
I think he
sir.
just proposed.
All women are shorter than me, so hobbit can mean a lot of different things. You know what I mean? I'll roll with that.
How tall are you, Salty?
I'm 6'5".
6'5", you big guy. Yeah, 6'3". Yeah.
So this one, I saw the photos, towering pretty much over everybody.
What are you at? What are you at? 6'3", 6'4"?
6'3", 6'3".
Yeah.
Roger that. Cool, brother.
Tower.
Yeah.
Let's play basketball. Let's go.
Volleyball.
Ball up.
Volleyball. Yeah.
Okay, Tugs, what was your thought?
It just hit me. Something did change the older I've gotten. I used to really like Éowyn, and it was because she was the strong girl that defeated the Witch King and all this stuff. And I was like, yeah, that's a BA female. I want to be just like her. And as I've gotten older, it's Arwen that I want to be like, and not Éowyn.
That's same here. I think I have a distinct memory of really loving Éowyn as a little girl. It's Arwen now, and Galadriel. I hope to be Galadriel one day. I am not in any way, shape, or form there yet, but I hope that I'm there one day.
You know what female character I'm attracted to is Éowyn. I really am. I mean, I thought Arwen was beautiful, but as far as personality type, it was Éowyn for me. And it's kind of stayed that way. But maybe that has to do with me and sort of my Briggs-Meyer, whatever the hell it is thing.
Yeah.
I think that's, I think there's nothing wrong with that, Alasia. And I think that the fact that we can all say, this is someone I want to aspire to be, and maybe even not necessarily be as in terms of like, I want to be this person, but I want to exemplify the characteristics that they exemplify. Because I will be my own person and will have my own quirks and traits and stuff, but the qualities of character that they, show and that they display, that's what I can only hope to have, right? That's why Superman is such a symbol of hope to people. He's literally the embodiment and exemption of what all great things look like, which is why doing him a disservice in the comics of like having him be evil or having him subverted or whatever doesn't work for the character as much as people would like it, because that's just not who that's supposed to be. That's not why the character was created, but that's a different stream. So yeah, I think with you saying I want to be like Galadriel is, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I would love to have Galadriel's traits. Are you kidding me? Grace, compassion,
Eternal beauty.
yeah, eternal beauty. Yeah. So yeah, I think there's nothing wrong with that at all.
Yeah. Yeah. Everyone's putting their height in the chat. I'm 5'9", so I'm one of the taller girls in the fellowship.
Yeah.
And it's
X-ray
We've got
X-ray
Hobbit
girl is
representation, elf representation,
yes, I'm the
X-ray
elf
girl
representation.
is
representation. All of y'all are giants.
Yes.
X-ray girl is 9 feet tall. She is taller than all of us. So
What's
it's,
it
Girls
eight
like
the last
Hobbit
time
orc.
you said it?
I love
She
every
just-
time you
she
say
just
it.
keeps getting larger and larger
She's
every
getting
time.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Well,
I have a. Go ahead.
no, go ahead. Go ahead.
I did want to ask a question for you as a big book fan.
Okay.
Is if there was one part of the Lord of the Rings books that didn't make into the movies that you really wish would have, what would it be? One aspect, one part. What do you wish would have been in the movies that wasn't? I know what it is for me, but I'll let you go.
What I missed reading The Two Towers is the friendship between Éomer, Gimli, and Legolas. They have a really close relationship in the books. Gimli actually rides with Éomer the entire time because Legolas refuses to ride with a saddle and bit. And Gimli's like, hell freaking no, I'm not getting on a bareback horse. And as someone who has ridden bareback, I don't blame the man because that is hard. But also he had no bridle. So Éomer was like, Gimli, you'll just ride with me the whole time. He literally was friend. He was always with Gimli. So they like in the movies, they still have that to a certain extent, but I really missed the relationship between Éomer, Gimli, and Legolas. It was really, really inspiring in the book. So I think off the top of my head, I bet you if I sat here and thought longer about it, it's not necessarily whole scenes. It's, Celeborn was slightly downplayed. I mean, like, it's him who has more of the dialogue when they get to Lorien, and Galadriel basically has to like, hey, calm down. Gimli is not gonna. She's like, I know you had to witness your uncle getting murdered, but cool it. And it's Celeborn who has more of a role to play. He is the wisest elf in Middle Earth, so it's aspects that I really regret not being there. So that's my answer.
Celeborn?
I'm sorry.
It's pronounced Celeborn. I thought it was Celeborn.
No, it's Celeborn.
Celeborn.
Oh.
Yeah. So what's yours?
Great question, Johnny. Yeah.
Mine, it's a hot take, and it gets people.
I bet I know what you're gonna say.
On both sides.
Oh, boy,
the Scouring of the Shire.
Rosie said that too.
Yeah, the Scouring of the Shire.
Rosie Gamges too. Rosie Gamges.
Yes,
same thing.
I wish it was in there because for me, there's two things. One, the first thing is it seems kind of tacky that Hobbiton and the Shire as a whole just remained this safe haven the entire time. And I think it almost kind of diminishes the gravity of what was going on and how the world was going to fall. That I kind of wish that would have happened. So that's the first aspect. The second aspect is it really kind of completes the character arc and the growth of the hobbits and shows that they're not the same hobbits that left the Shire, and just seeing them like achieve victory after that. I get it would have seemed kind of weird to feel like we just defeated Sauron and now there's something else they have to conquer afterwards. Yeah. But at the same time, it's characters that didn't really, I don't know, like it's separate from the rest of the Fellowship, the 9. I feel like they could have made it work, and I would have loved to have seen it. I think it would have been so cool. Yeah. Because the movie already had like 6 endings. What's another one? Like, it's like
20 minutes.
That was the worst part, honestly.
I don't hate that. I don't either. I get passionate about that.
No.
I love all the endings. Maybe they should have chilled it.
Hard in the theater. You haven't peed for like 3 hours, and you're like, "Oh, cool." Nope.
You're peeking weight. It's freaking Lord of the Rings. Wrapping up the greatest story ever. Like what?
I peed. I got up and peed. Okay. I got the bucket of Sprite, and I couldn't wait. So
Here's the thing.
I had to see it again.
the
That's a true story.
transitions, maybe you don't need to fade to black every time. Like,
That's
but
true.
seriously, just as an editor, like,
Yeah, that
maybe
was
fading
that
to
was
black
good.
was probably the wrong call. Doing it like 5 times, people are like, oh, it's over. It's not over. But you compare that to the way Harry Potter ended. Harry Potter was freaking abrupt as hell. They're like, oh,
True.
here's them adults now looking like, at their future children, and it's over. And it's what? Like,
I didn't like it. I
the way
didn't
they
like
were.
that ending. I didn't like the Harry Potter ending at all. I agree with you. I
Yeah.
wanted to see more. After all we suffered with those characters, we couldn't get a marriage or proposal or,
Yeah.
something like that.
Well,
I mean,
to be fair, that the books end. That was the minus the whole Voldemort
Yes.
situation, which is a whole other. That's how books end.
I read that.
And I didn't like it then either. That
Yeah.
you are right.
in,
though. Yeah.
in that
But
second
you
to the
asked
last
for
book
more,
would never
and we got
end.
more, and
Yeah.
it was garbage. The cursed child is
Oh,
literally.
I don't even want to talk about it.
I know.
So
It's not
those of you
canon.
who said we want more, I hate all of you.
Wait, no, it's not right. Can I not have both? I want more and I want it to be good. I can't
That's
ask for
fine.
more and for it to be good.
But
Lord of the Rings did it well. They gave us the more and they wrapped up every character's
No,
story.
hold on. I'm changing my answer because now I thought of one.
Oh,
That we
you
did
can't do
not
that.
get a goodbye between Elrond and Arwen and Elrohir and Eladine. I will never forgive Peter Jackson because Tolkien was very specific with his words. He put in things deliberately. He did not put throwaway sentences. He said the greatest sundering of the Third Age was the departing of Arwen and Elrond. You're telling me that we established that this father and daughter have loved each other and we can't even get a goodbye? I will always be mad about that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That's
a good
fair.
one.
Right, go Tex.
What's the Scouring of the Shire?
So the Scouring of the Shire basically it involves Saruman. So Saruman in the extended version dies in the second movie, but in the books, he basically takes a group of his orcs and overthrows the Shire. Now, in the movie itself, you actually see a glimpse of the Scouring of the Shire when Frodo is looking into Galadriel's pond. And so that what you're seeing is the Scouring of the Shire. What happens is the hobbits then come back, the 4 hobbits, and as battle-tested, as matured hobbits, they go back and they kick ass and they take the Shire back. And it's like this huge victory for them and this big character thing. I mean, it really shows where they started, where they finished. And so that's why I really, really like it. They took it out because it just, they thought it felt kind of out of place because after the climax of we just see the tower falling down, we just saw Sauron defeated. It kind of feels weird maybe to start that up again and build up to a battle in the Scouring of the Shire. But I don't know. I think they could have made it work. I think it would have been awesome. But yeah, people usually people seem pretty split on it. There's a lot of people who are should have been in, and there's people who are just it absolutely makes sense why it's not in.
It's the same
I
thing
can
with
see
Tom
both. I see
Bombadil.
both.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's the same. They gave a lot of Tom Bombadil's lines to Treebeard because they felt it would be appropriate. I'm happy that Tom Bombadil's not in the book or in the movie because the only way I can get through it now is the new Andy Serkis recordings of the audiobooks. Robert Ingalls, I love his recordings, but it's so mellow they put me to sleep. Andy Serkis gets through really quickly. he charges through, and I'm like, oh, thank God we've gotten through the Barrow Downs. I can't take any more of this. So I'm really glad that whole section is not in the movie because it's agony to get through in the book.
Yeah.
And I love how Elrond is he's the most flighty, unhelpful person on this planet. Let's not give the ring to him. That's not my opinion of Tom Bombadil.
Mm-hmm.
Spoilers for what? What is he talking about?
I think if he's reading the book, the Scouring of yeah. I don't want to go into it too much. To be fair, the book's been out a long time, so
it's 100 million years old. What are you talking about?
So it's tricky. We kind of have to talk about Lord of the Rings here.
I'm trying to spoil the Bible. Spoilers: Jesus died.
Yeah, and it was released in 1958. Well before anybody here was born, except maybe somebody.
All of us. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Literally all of us.
Yes.
try not to touch on it too more. But again, we're talking about the completeness of Lord of the Rings, so there might be a lot more we spoil. So
Oh,
Yes.
yeah, Lord, I adore you. Don't ever say
Yeah.
the 50-year-old book. No spoilers. What? Batman's parents are dead. Just throw that out there.
I mean, I could have been like spoilers for book readers, I guess, if you haven't finished it yet.
Yeah. But I mean, you know what? That makes me happy. We have someone reading it for the very first time. I'm like, oh my gosh, this
Wow.
person's gone and picked up the books. Like,
That's
well done, Hail the Lord.
amazing.
That is-
Seriously,
that's awesome.
amazing.
Well done, you.
Talk about hailing the lore. When you read
No
those books,
kidding.
you are going to be like, okay, I'm in. The lore is
Yeah.
like, this is sacred text. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Mhm.
Yes.
so you're gonna love it.
Yeah. And the other thing, and Max, we've talked about it a couple different times on my show, is that people accuse us of being rage farmers and that we just want to complain and this isn't made for us. And it's like, no, it's because this text matters and these stories matter, these characters matter. And Peter Jackson did an imperfect adaptation, but it's as perfect as anybody, in my opinion, could make with the time that they had. And I think it honored the characters. And we're not complaining about the Rings of Power or any of these other properties just to get clicks, just to get views. We actually care about them. Some people love them just at a superficial level, which is fine. You can just enjoy something. Some people enjoy it at a medium level. Read the books, you've read some of the appendices, and some people are approaching scholarly levels and get genuinely pissed off because they are deeply disrespecting the catechisms that Tolkien put together. But that's why we get on these shows, and that's why we talk about Lord of the Rings and why we love it. And it's also why we make videos about what Payne and McKay are doing, because it is very clearly has nothing to do with this world that we love so much. And and this is not feigned emotion. This stuff comes from the heart. It really does.
Yeah, and I'm tired of hearing those people calling us rage farmers and all that, because it's not like there's no truth to it. I mean, I remember people, including myself, freaking loved Dune. We've been drooling over Maverick and how great that was. We were freaking loving Spider-Man when that came out, and you know, they're just not paying attention at those times, and they're just only paying attention when we're upset about stuff. So
I do pay attention. I think Maverick of all of them. I think Spider-Man, they're definitely not going to pay attention, because I think at a point there was a given that it was gonna do well, just because of us nostalgia people, as older people, we're gonna flock to go see it just solely because of Toby anyway. And the fact that it ended up being a good story was a bonus. I think if Hollywood doesn't take a step back and go, whoa, with Maverick, then they really truly are lost and they're idiots and they don't want to make any money at all ever again without fight after fight. Because there is no way, if you went back 5 years ago and you said, Tugs, your favorite movie is getting a sequel. Not only is it getting a sequel, but it's going to make $1 billion at the box office. I would have thought you were insane and called the white coats on you and said, go. Top Gun's good. It ain't that good. And here we are.
I mean,
if you don't listen now, I got nothing for you. Like, I really just don't have anything for you. I don't know what to help. I don't know what to tell you.
The Spider-Man film, like when Spider-Man, the most recent one came out, and we had all three Spider-Men in the same, scenes, and they did a great job of introducing them into the universe and everything. It paid reverence to the old movies. It was fun. It's not a masterpiece. It's not going to win awards, but it was fun. And it made, like you said, Tugs, it made $1 billion at the box office. Another one that people just take my money here, take my money. And yet Doctor Strange comes out and they go, well, we're going to, let's do 80% reshoots because, hey, everyone likes the heroes and the stories, but in ours, let's just kill them all. Spoilers. I don't want anyone to go see Doctor Strange, so I'm just going to spoil it for you anyway. But let's take all those characters that we know work, we know that we'll get billions of dollars for, but let's just kill them all. You know,
that's just studio crap 101. It's like when The Hobbit came out, they're like, what's popular right now? Twilight. We need to get some Twilight and The Hobbit. So let's have a love triangle. And it's just freaking, what is wrong with
Yeah, that was
you,
out of place. That was although that dwarf though, he cute.
Why does it hurt so much?
Hey, where my short kings at? My dwarves. All my Wolverines.
Maverick has healed this country, at least for the moment. I swear to you. I swear to you.
we should go see it while we're in Dallas. I will
never say no. I will never say no.
I seriously want to go see it. If we wanted to go see that like Thursday, not Saturday night, I'm down.
We're gonna go see The Thing. We're not gonna see Maverick.
We're gonna see that on Sunday, but I keep trying to see Maverick, and every time I go to buy tickets, there's always like one seat like up front
it's
close
been
to
sold out.
like I gotta do this because I'm out here in middle of nowhere, Texas, and let me tell you what, I was by there today. I thought I'd drive by. Every time I go to the movie theater, the parking lot is full to overflowing.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not there to see Jurassic, whatever the hell it's called. They're there to see Top Gun. And you see families with, 8-9-year-old kids go in, and you see people like old enough to be my grandparents, my parents going in because apparently I'm old. And, like stuff like that. But everybody is going to see this movie. And it looks like twice. A lot of people are seeing it twice.
I've seen it 3 times. I took my dad the second time, the day after Memorial Day. So it's a Tuesday after Memorial Day. People are back at work. The holiday's over. We go to the theater I always go to, and I go, and my normal Tuesday thing is I get a big, large popcorn because it's half off price. So it's only $4 instead of $9. And then I get a beer. I get a Stella. And that's my movie thing. That's what I do. And I go and I stop and I'm looking at the draft system, and my brain is not computing because there's nothing there. There's nothing on the draft. Yeah. And I said, am I missing something? She goes, oh no. She goes, all the Top Gun people, Top Gun was so popular this week. And what do especially most of Top Gun fans are? Military. They drink. The wine, beer, the mixers for the frozen slushies.
That's awesome.
Gone. They drank them out. She was like, we luckily got our shipment of popcorn yesterday. Otherwise, we would be out of that too. I was like, holy cow. She goes, everybody was here from Top Gun. They had aviators on. Everybody's wearing Maverick and Goose shirts. They're yelling, I need the Need for Speed or whatever and all this stuff. And it was chaos here this weekend. Absolute chaos. I'm like,
wow.
Yes. Every time I've gone, whether it's been empty or full, there has been, we're all crying in the theater, grown men, tears, just the emotional weight of it. Everybody's in the theater. Everybody's clapping. The credits start. It's the exact same credits from the original movie. Everybody, I can't. I've seen it 3 times now, and it's been. I can't get enough of it. It's so good, and the audience has been the best every single time I've gone to it. We're laughing.
That's
we're
amazing.
yelling. There was a bunch of girls at the beach scene. They were like, ow, ow.
So is that why they? Oh, go ahead.
So sorry. The Untamed Mando has to go. She has been working hard for almost 3 hours putting out the links. You are amazing. Thank you so much, Untamed Life. Yeah. Sorry, Mike. Sorry, Max. Go ahead.
No, thank you for interrupting because not interrupting, but giving a send off, interjecting. Thank you.
Yeah.
And sending off Untamable Life because she's been
a monster tonight. She's been amazing.
Wielding the light of Elendir for the entire night. So thank you. Yeah, so Tugs, is that probably why they re-released Morbius into theaters? Because people were having that same reaction as Top Gun, and
I liked Morbius for what it was, a popcorn flick. Jared Leto looked good in that movie, and I don't say that about Jared Leto at all, but he looked good in that movie for some reason. But it was a stupid, silly popcorn flick. I liked it for what it was. I know people hated it, but
that's like marrying a woman you got a divorce from. What did you expect the second time around? I mean, they put it out, and it did worse than what it did before. Jesus.
Well, and I feel like probably what a lot of people will say about Dominion. I liked it. It was not perfect. I am going to do a spoiler review of it. Jurassic Park, Jurassic World.
I got there eventually.
Because you know what? It's funny. This is a side trail, and I'll clue people in to where my review is going to go. If you have not read the Jurassic Park book, you don't understand the importance of Biosin and Lou Dobson. I will just say that. But it's such a deep cut. It's like that was not fair to do that to the audience. Go back and read the introduction. Go back and read. Yeah, go back and read the boardroom scene at Biosin with Lou Dobson.
I know about the book.
Yeah, and like how he like sets up what Biosin is doing. Go read that, and Dominion will make a whole lot of sense.
They put that in the movie after not ever having that in the movie to begin with. This whole time after 20 years.
Yes. Yeah. But you don't know that unless you read the books. I still liked it though.
Confused. Oh
still
my
like
God.
it. But that's the fair. So sorry. Anyways, that's a sidetrack. I will do a spoiler review, and I will talk about the book because
you can't just drop that at the end of this quadrilogy, sextology, whatever the heck you call it. After 20 plus years, you can't. Oh my! All right, I'm sorry, I'm done.
But I still liked it.
Go see Top Gun.
We're gonna go see Top Gun in Dallas. We'll make this happen somehow.
Okay, I'm cool with that. I'm cool
down
with
it.
You can ride in the third row seats of my truck though, that I never pull up. So I'm not responsible for the 3 years of dog hair that may
I
be
will have
there,
my
but
car.
I do have a third row of seats in the back.
Well,
of my car.
I have a nice Ford. We can just take. I'll just.
All right. Well, you can drive in Dallas then. I have no problem with that. So yeah.
Well, my control freak nature would be more happy with that than the stress of something else.
Go to a
You're going to
drive-in,
be
that'd be
so
fun.
much fun to go to a con with Alasia. I can't wait.
I'm not asking you to spend time with me. I will stand in a corner and do my own thing. Johnny Oz already said he's going to cling to me. I am more than happy.
We'll
to
be
trail
good.
up
We'll
with
be
him.
good. Yeah, we'll be all right.
So now I'm a third wheel instead of you needing to hide behind me like you were saying last week. Okay.
Listen.
Right.
You do whatever you want to do. We're just going to do our own introverted thing, and we don't you can figure the rest out. But we're just going to do what we always do.
No, I'm just saying. I was told I needed to mind Alasia by Alasia. So
no, you don't need to mind me, especially.
Johnny, are you going to be able to make it to Texas? I thought you weren't going to be able to go.
Yeah!
Oh, excellent! Great,
cool,
man.
Cool. I finally get
cool.
my
Nintendaddy.
Yeah.
I don't get there until Friday though, so you better save up a big hug for me because I'm gonna hug you.
Yeah.
Cool, man. That'll be fun.
You sound so enthusiastic.
It's gonna happen. Oh, I'm so excited. Yay.
All right. Well, guys, we have been going at this for 3 hours. This has been an incredible discussion, and I want to say thank you for letting me do this for my birthday. I'm not someone who likes the limelight. So that's why I wanted to turn this into an appreciation stream for something we all love rather than sit around and someone said we should have the whole theme of the stream be myself. And I was like, nope.
Yeah.
I just, nope, it's not happening.
That would make me die inside too.
Yep. I like the thought of being the limelight ever. It makes me want to crawl out of my skin. So I was like, nope, that's not happening. So thank you.
That means you have to make her full screen, right?
Well, I'll first of all kick him out. And second,
we should have.
Did I do something wrong? I'm just, I can do this.
We should have said okay, everyone, let's go around the panel. What do we love most about Alasia? Let's talk about the thing we love most about her. And then Alasia would just awkwardly cringe, be cringing in the corner, thank you, but this is awful.
Please stop
Okay, let me make this announcement now. I've done this a couple times, but I'm going to do it again, and probably again. I will not be at the Nerdrotic meetup on Thursday. I could not take Friday off of work, so I will be there. I will be in Dallas at 8 p.m. on Friday nights, and I will be there all day Saturday, all day Sunday, and all day Monday, and my flight leaves late Monday night. So I will not be, which I'm very bummed about, but I couldn't abandon my poor wingman at work. So I had to take a half a day. So that, yes. So any snacks and stuff you want to save for me, you put those in your bags and and we'll see you guys Friday or Saturday or Sunday or something. Yeah.
Is snacks code for vodka? Is that how that? Okay. I just wanted to make sure.
If anybody wants to meet me,
you're not putting that in my purse.
Vodka, you're the best. What?
I don't know, man.
He throws me for a loop every single time. Thank you, Rosie. We love everything about you too, my darling. I don't even remember how you found my channel, but I so appreciate you being here and supporting me all the time. You are such a joy to have in my chats. So thank you, Freddie. So again, guys, just thank you so much. This week has been really, it's been a week. It's been a really, 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 really long week. And so I was a little snappish leading up to this point. Salty knows, and Purple Valkyrie also. I was like DMing her, and I was like, "What do I do about this?" I was so annoyed that I even agreed to this because, again, I just don't like being the center of attention. But this, I would not have spent my birthday any other way of talking about Lord of the Rings and talking about with people who love it as much as I do. So thank you guys really so much.
Yeah. We're gonna find you good Lord of the Rings art at the con because I'm sure it'll be fun.
I've got one space.
I'm hoping for
there.
Max. We have to be on the lookout for some Top Gun art too. I'm hoping some artists.
Well, and I need to get McKenna some Wolverine art. Max, you're gonna have to help me find McKenna some good Wolverine art.
I want to get Superman. I wonder if Jason Palmer's going.
I hope. Don't say he is. I'll buy all his Dune art. He's got several portraits of all of the Atreides family, and I'm just like, I want all of them, but they're they're huge.
Yeah.
They're I think they're 20. I think that's Rivendell up there is a 24 by 16, I think, and I'm like, yeah, no, I have no more room. So anyways, is there anything
you're being sung to in chat? You're being sung to by Freddie
birthday
to you.
Oh, Geek
Happy
Talk! Thank
birthday.
you, Brandon. I don't know if you've
There
been
you
lurking, but thank you for being here, guys. This is a really cool guy, and he barely has any subscribers. I discovered him. He came up on my algorithm. He's really cool. So if you guys are looking for a new channel to subscribe to, and he does a Star Wars Lego streams. And they're super chill. So if you guys are looking for a new channel, Geek Talk is where to go. I think he's a cool guy. So and he's definitely part of our community. He's just been lurking on the outside of it. So yeah, go subscribe to him. But is there any last thing that you guys want to say about any of this before we say goodnight?
No.
I don't think so. But if you want to drop a clip to end it, that probably wouldn't hurt.
Okay. Definitely do that.
I do want to say one thing. I look forward to seeing everyone who's going to be in Dallas. For those of you who aren't in Dallas, I hope we get to meet one day. So I also want to say a very belated happy birthday to Alasia. She works very hard on these shows. She is a content creator that is her skill set is improving, but her voice has always been there, and she has been a wonder to watch. And I am very blessed and lucky that I get to work with actually true strong independent women like Alasia, like Tugs, like Purple Valkyrie. And let's just remember that the next time they call us misogynists in this fandom. But this is what we have.
Well spoken, brother. And even Alasia, to kind of speak on that, like, even when people ask McKenna, like, hey, out of all the streams that you did with Max and all the topics that you guys covered, what was your favorite one to do? And not 10 times out of 10, she always tells me the one with Alasia, because Alasia spoke her mind. She spoke with passion. She spoke with integrity. And I kid you not, McKenna still talks to me about it to this day and goes like, can you believe the tenacity that Alasia came onto that stream with? Because I think it was one of the first ones that we had you on where you were able to speak your mind, to a live audience. And we were so grateful for that. So to echo the sentiments of everyone here on the panel and in chat, we greatly appreciate your voice because it is heard here. So
thank you. No, the floodgates definitely opened that night, and they haven't closed back up. And I'm definitely learning how to say things in a a more fluid way, I guess you could say. I'm definitely learning how to use my voice. I've never been someone who uses my voice. In my graduate studies, the way I would grind down my teeth because I would just sit there and clench my jaw all night long was just hell. So I was so convinced being at university that nobody was normal anymore, and that nobody had my morals, or no one even believed even adjacent to anything I believed. And finding this community, fellowship, rebellion, whatever you want to call it, has been such a, you guys will never know. I even at my small group that I've known for a couple months now, I hardly even talk to these people because I'm just like, they just don't understand this world that we live in. But when I'm with you guys, I feel so loved and accepted, and I just love being in your guys' chats, and I know that I have my old-fashioned ways, but I appreciate you guys just letting me be myself, because this is the first time in my life I've really ever been allowed to be myself. I've always censored myself. I've never stood up for myself, and I've never spoken my mind to the extent that I am now. So it's the gift that you've all given me. I could never put words to it. I can never put a price on. So thank you guys for opening your arms up to me and welcoming me in.
See, we gave her a
Okay.
voice, and now she won't be quiet.
I know.
She just keeps talking. I love
Be
it.
careful what you wish for. You'll get it. Here we are.
More!
So anyways, all right. Well, do you guys want to go around and shout out your channels real quick? I mean, we've been dropping links all night long. So what do you guys want to end on? Should I just play a clip and we end out the night?
Yeah.
Let's do that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Bye,
everybody.
Real quick, anybody
Yeah.
who's going to be in Dallas, just last thing, anybody who's going to be in Dallas, don't hesitate to come talk to us. Don't hesitate to come
Please.
talk to us.
Absolutely.
Because I
Please
hear
do.
every once in a while people say, oh, I wanted to say hi, but I didn't, I got nervous, that sort of thing. And that's like the most tragic thing is just hearing that like people showed up with the intent to meet people and then it didn't happen. And I understand as an introvert that could be pretty hard. But if you approach and I don't know who you are, I'm going to be ready to receive you. And let's just
absolutely.
talk. Let me know who you are in the chat and we'll would love that. So please do.
I would love that. But also,
and
please
it-
do
Go
your
ahead.
chat names and your Twitter names, because if you say, hey, I'm Joe, I'm going to be like, I don't know who you are. But if you say, hey, I'm Hail the Lord, okay.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I ask.
Yeah,
Yes.
please. What Tug said. The other thing too is that I and Purple Valkyrie and other creators are probably going to be having giveaways. So if you need even more inspiration to come up and actually talk to us, there are cool things that you can get if you're fans of our channels. That's all I'm going to say. I'm not going to say anymore. So.
Yeah. Well, and to go off what Johnny said, I mean, like Johnny and I are the introverts. Like I absolutely understand being nervous and shy. Trust me, we get it. And like, we are so for you guys coming up and saying hi. But I also echo what Tugs is saying. Please tell us your screwed names, because and I'm new to this, so and I've heard people in my Discord have been saying we want to say hi to you. So please tell me your screen name. So all right, with
that was the biggest problem the last couple. Is like, I'm so and so, and we're like, cool. I don't know what I need more information.
Or even if you don't and you just say, hey, I'm a lurker, so you're not going to know who I am. Well, sweet. Tell me about yourself. That's cool.
Absolutely.
That's cool too.
Absolutely.
Please. Yeah.
Alrighty, guys. Thank you again so much. You know what? Let me try Streamlabs. It would just be my luck to miss something. No, okay, we are good. Thank you again also so much. Good night, everyone. Have a wonderful time, and we will see you guys on the next one. Bye.
Bye.
If you want him, come and claim him.